Opening her eyes, she had become Liliana, an unloved princess, an insignificant side character in the novel. The pink-haired princess wouldn't be abandoned as in the original story. She was merely the heroine's short-lived mother, dying after giving birth. The beginning of a string of misfortunes and tragedies started with her being sent as a hostage to the bloodthirsty emperor. Would Lily comply with the original plot and accept her fate, or would she try to change the future? Let's follow this captivating story together. The story begins in a forest, where a voice rings out, "Host, your wish will be granted." The girl wore a mysterious black veil, but she still had a question. Liliana looked up. "Really?" She smiled gently. "Is this what you desire?" In the palace. At this moment, several princesses were having breakfast together when a servant suddenly walked in and announced, "Excuse me, your highnesses." Lily and Priscilla immediately turned and asked, "What is it?" The servant stammered, "This shouldn't be said during mealtime, but His Majesty asked me to relay a message." Lily and Priscilla's faces paled instantly when they heard, "Our army has surrendered to the Carlo Empire." The servant looked at them hesitantly, afraid to speak. "Tomorrow afternoon, the Emperor of the Carlo Empire will arrive here." He also declared that all 5 princesses must attend the welcoming ceremony. Lily, who was enjoying her meal, stopped abruptly upon hearing this. Lily calmly replied, "As princesses of a defeated nation, we have no right to refuse. Please inform Father that we understand." But seeing this, Priscilla panicked and said, "Haven't you heard the rumors?" She recounted, "The Emperor of the Carlo Empire is a man with a perpetually furrowed brow, a terrifying face, a cruel tyrant, a bloodthirsty king. He's the one who overthrew his own brother and usurped the throne." Priscilla's face turned pale as she spoke of him. "Do you think such a person would show mercy to our small, defeated nation?" Priscilla continued to list, "I also heard he intends to choose one of us as a hostage to become his empress." The other princesses' faces also paled, filled with unease. "I'd rather die than marry such a man." "Sister Lily, say something." Lily suddenly slammed the table and stood up abruptly. Everyone looked at her in surprise. Lily said, "Sisters," she softly requested, "I'll excuse myself first." Priscilla listened, bewildered, watching Lily leave with dissatisfaction, muttering under her breath, "So she means it's not her problem." She thought sadly, "None of my business." Suddenly, the butler called out to her, "Princess Liliana," he said, "His Majesty has something to convey to you alone, Your Highness. I will escort you to the study." Lily was startled, thinking, "It's coming after all." She followed the butler, her mind racing. The one to be sent as a hostage now, Lily knew in her heart, wasn't her beloved sister Lily. She thought to herself, nor was it any of her other sisters. Suddenly, the butler turned around and called, "Princess Lily." Filled with worry and fear, she muttered to herself, "Because the hostage is me." At this moment, the maids were quickly dressing her up. Where should the story begin? Lily's face was filled with sorrow. This is actually the world of the novel. The pink-haired princess won't be abandoned. "So now, I am that pink-haired princess." Sophia comforted her with concern. "Princess, don't be sad," she persuaded confidently. "Becoming the empress of the empire, that's a path to a higher status, right? Much better than now." Lily smiled awkwardly. "Thank you, Sophia." But behind that bitter smile, she thought, if I were the heroine, I wouldn't have to worry. The pink-haired princess. Wait, this is a fantasy romance novel. The lovely pink-haired heroine melts the heart of the arrogant emperor father and is loved by everyone. And my place in this novel? My daughter, you've grown so fast. It's here as the heroine's short-lived mother, dying after giving birth. Speaking of fantasy romance novel tropes, in those novels where parents raise children, the heroine's mother usually dies early and only appears in flashbacks. Lily smiled helplessly at the mirror. It's not about improving the situation, but my future is already predetermined. I'm going to be sent as a hostage, won't receive the love of the arrogant emperor, the heroine's father, and will die after giving birth. This is how it all begins. This small kingdom of Miata is the place on the continent where high-grade magic stones are produced. For some reason, during trade with the Empire, the price of magic stones suddenly soared. The Carlo Empire issued warnings several times, but the situation didn't change, and they finally launched a war. The outcome of the war between the powerful empire and the small nation was self-evident. King of Miata, listen. I, the Emperor of the Carlo Empire, will grant you pardon and will not pursue the responsibility of the defeated nation, but I will choose one of your daughters to become my empress. King of Miata gritted his teeth and endured, accepting this as an honor and obeying. Thus, consumed by immense greed, the King of Miata decided to send one of his daughters to the Empire as a hostage. Just now, after dinner, my father called me aside and told me I would be going to the Carlo Empire. The king has 5 daughters. Why me? Because I was born to a commoner maid. I am the forgotten princess, the one no one cares for or loves. Liliana tossed and turned in bed, lost in thought. If I stay here, I'll just be the forgotten princess, locked away in the palace. She suddenly sat up, a determined look on her face. If I'm sent away, I'll die after giving birth to a child. No, that's putting it a bit too strongly. I only have 2 choices. She called out urgently. The emperor arrives this afternoon, right, Sophia? Liliana spoke seriously. If there are any unused curtains or tablecloths in the palace, could you gather them for me? Night fell upon the royal palace, and hurried footsteps echoed. Liliana tied scarves together and climbed down. She looked around, a determined expression on her face, her gaze firm. Good. Hidden behind a wall near the palace gates, Liliana observed the people in front. She thought carefully. On the north side of the palace, far from the stables, hardly anyone ever passes by. Ahead, the steward was talking to a blonde man. As expected, only 3 people. Wait, why is the steward here? Liliana was puzzled. He shouldn't be here at this hour. There's only one other person besides the steward, and that's the stable master. The blonde man asked the steward, where is the 3rd person? Has the king of Miata retired for the night? The steward replied awkwardly, it's quite late, but a servant has already relayed your message. We'll meet soon enough. The blonde man frowned, simply nodding. Liliana watched him and sighed. He's quite handsome. Is he a nobleman? But she snapped back to reality. This is no time to be thinking about such things. While they were talking, Liliana made up her mind. I have to get out of here. She had already packed a few belongings. Even if I'm neglected here, I'm still royalty. Selling jewelry for money won't be difficult. Liliana imagined, everyone, I've broken free from my shackles, and I'm going to find my own happiness. As long as I can ride a horse across the border without being discovered, I won't die in childbirth like in the original story. The steward said hurriedly, please come in now. Helio Carlo turned around, suddenly noticing something. Wait a moment. Then he instructed, the horse I brought is very precious. Please take special care of it. The servant immediately replied, of course, your majesty. Please rest assured. The steward boasted confidently, in Miata, we mix magic stones into the feed. I guarantee it will be even healthier when it returns. Meanwhile, Liliana was sneaking into the stables. She approached a horse and whispered to it. Helio Carlo continued, instructing the servant. It's very sensitive. Please keep it somewhere comfortable. Understood. Suddenly, the horse thrashed wildly, making Liliana pale. Don't touch me. Helio Carlo and the other 2 were startled. They turned around. Liliana hurriedly tried to soothe the horse. Wait, why won't this horse listen to anything? He had already seen Liliana. Who is that girl trying to ride my horse? The steward cried out in a panic, Princess Liliana. She jumped, startled. I've been discovered. Helio Carlo frowned, looking her over. Princess, the steward asked, perplexed. Where are you going so late? His face paled. Wait, are you trying to escape? Liliana said nothing, quickly mounting the horse. I am sorry, Stevart. She urged the horse on. I mean you no harm. Unexpectedly, Helio Carlo quickly caught up. He looked at her and said gently, I told you, this horse is precious. Liliana asked in surprise, who are you? Helio Carlo calmly replied, even if you were the princess of this country. He immediately added sarcastically, you shouldn't risk stealing the emperor's horse. Helio Carlo sat behind Liliana, smiling. You shouldn't risk stealing the emperor's horse. She looked at him in astonishment. So this person is the emperor. Liliana finally panicked. Helio Carlo, the young emperor of the Carlo Empire. The steward also arrived, asking anxiously, Princess, your majesty, are you both all right? Her face was pale. Why did I have to run into the one person I shouldn't have? Helio Carlo, the young emperor of the Carlo Empire and the heroine's father. He suddenly glanced at her. Perhaps this is the man I'm going to marry in the story. Liliana was startled. Seeing her reaction, Helio Carlo simply smiled and extended his hand. Liliana looked at him questioningly, hesitantly asking, what are you doing? Helio Carlo replied calmly, aren't you coming down? he teased. You don't plan on living on horseback, do you? Emperor Helio casually remarked. As strong as this horse is, I doubt it can carry you forever. Liliana's face flushed red at his words. True to his reputation, his temper was notoriously short. He gently helped her dismount, but Liliana still hesitated. She immediately knelt, bowed, and said, "It is an honor to meet you, Your Majesty, Emperor Carlo." Emperor Helio frowned coldly at Liliana and replied, "I sincerely apologize for my rudeness upon our first encounter." He immediately asked sternly, "Were you trying to escape?" The steward quickly intervened, "Absolutely not, Your Majesty. She just couldn't sleep and went for a walk, as she often does. Isn't that right, Princess?" Princess Liliana stammered, sweating profusely. "Right," Emperor Helio said with a sarcastic laugh, causing both of them to freeze. "On my horse." He nodded, a mocking smile playing on his lips. "Well, I suppose it must be fate that we met like this." He then promptly ordered, "Lead the way, Princess. I was planning on seeing your father anyway." At that moment, all the princesses of the palace appeared. Emperor Helio sat proudly on the throne, while the king of Miata was forced to kneel before him. He began, "I just witnessed a rather interesting scene I wanted to share." The king hesitantly replied, "What did you see?" Emperor Helio glanced around dismissively. "No, let's settle this matter first." He addressed the king. "Have you chosen which princess you will send to Carlo?" Liliana flinched. Emperor Helio stated bluntly, "After the war, we had an agreement that a princess would become the emperor of Carlo's wife." The king of Miata paled, stammering, "Of course, the kingdom of Miata is honored by this. We have decided to send our most beloved and precious daughter." He then pointed at her and solemnly declared, "Liliana." The king of Miata continued to praise Liliana before Emperor Helio. "She is my daughter, incredibly beautiful and intelligent." But Emperor Helio said without hesitation, "That princess was trying to escape just now. I happened to catch her." The princesses and the king were stunned. Liliana could only helplessly avoid the furious gazes of her sisters. "Wasn't she trying to escape because she didn't want to marry me?" The king of Miata frantically explained, "Impossible, there must be a misunderstanding. Liliana would never do such a thing." Emperor Helio frowned and stood up. "Is that so?" He approached the king of Miata. "I think I've given you too many choices, king. You can choose any princess you wish." The king was terrified. For a princess to abandon her country because she didn't want to become the emperor of Carlo's wife. Emperor Helio coldly raised his holy sword before the king of Miata, a mocking tone in his voice. "It seems I've been too lenient with the defeated nation. If I choose my own wife, there wouldn't be any obstacles." The king could only plead, "How could that be? Liliana truly is my most beloved daughter." He glared and asked, "Are you certain?" "Of course." With that, Emperor Helio sheathed his sword. He secured his sword, his tone shifting. "In that case," Emperor Helio mused, "in truth, any princess will do. I simply require a tie to bind Miata." He pondered, "I had hoped to take the king's most cherished princess." Liliana trembled in fear as she waited. Suddenly, Emperor Helio stood up, stared at her, and then gave a strange smile. With that, he commanded the king, "Let be so." He adjusted his clothes and casually decided with the king, "If Liliana is your most beloved princess, then the right of succession to the throne of Miata will go to the child born of me and Liliana." The onlookers murmured amongst themselves, "It doesn't necessarily have to be the first child. The third will do as well." The king of Miata's face was ashen. He spoke with worry. Emperor Helio glared coldly. "You cannot object." The king could only grit his teeth and agree. The princesses didn't dare to resist either, only standing and watching their father lower his head and accept the command. "I will do as you say." Emperor Helio turned and instructed, "Then let the wedding proceed as planned." Liliana was stunned. "Will 3 days be enough time to prepare?" Princess Liliana. Time passed quickly, and on the morning of the 3rd day, all the servants were busy with preparations. Liliana and Sophia stood with wide eyes, marveling at the golden-laid white carriage. "I've never seen such a carriage. It's even more beautiful than the one used by the late Empress." Sophia carefully helped Liliana into the carriage, saying, "I think this fits the saying, better to be the tail of a dragon than the head of a snake." Liliana settled heavily into the seat, her face etched with exhaustion. she complained. I'm about to become the future Empress, so the treatment is much better than before. This carriage and this heavy dress. Sophia immediately brought it up, decisively declaring, could it be that Emperor Helio fell in love with you at first sight? Liliana gasped what? She quickly waved her hands in denial. Impossible. His Majesty never said anything like that. Sophia pressed on, what do you mean impossible? Helio's voice rang out, and Liliana quickly turned around. Are you talking about me? He teased, or are you plotting another escape? Helio leaned in, a playful glint in his eyes. Gossiping about me before the wedding. Liliana stammered, flustered. When did that happen? No, he said casually. You being watched. Liliana turned away, dejected. I thought I was being discreet. She tried to explain, but I won't run away again. Even if I did escape, I don't have the confidence to survive on my own. Helio frowned, his gaze serious. She poured out her worries. I don't know what your Majesty is thinking, but I've been a princess my entire life. Liliana envisioned a bleak future. I can't sew, I can't clean, who would need me? She painted a vivid picture of her imagined demise. In the end, I'd be foraging for berries in the forest, drinking rainwater until I starved to death. Helio looked surprised. You've thought this through. Liliana stammered. I can cook, but I need a gas stove. Sophia looked bewildered. Suddenly, she looked at him with a pitiful frown. Anyway, your Majesty. Helio leaned closer, wanting to hear her better. He was taken aback when he heard Liliana declare herself completely useless. Helio said, perplexed, Princess, why are you suddenly saying such nonsense? They both froze, caught in an awkward silence. Liliana quickly waved her hands, trying to explain. No, what I meant was... He listened, surprised, as she continued. I mean, as a hostage, I don't have much value. Liliana recalled sadly, her voice small. Before you mentioned marriage, my father, the king of Miata, didn't even remember my name. She concluded, so whether you take me or not, it wouldn't be much of a threat to Miata. Helio's expression was a mixture of surprise and confusion. He simply frowned at her. Hearing the carriage door close, Helio said casually, ultimately, the decision of who becomes my Empress is mine, not yours. And he leaned in, his voice low. If you bear me a child, that child will become the ruler of this nation. Fear filled Liliana's eyes. Then, you'll no longer be a useless princess. Helio closed the carriage door, offering a bit of comfort. You can't predict how the world will change, so don't be so hard on yourself. Liliana continued to look up at him, and then Helio turned to leave, offering a parting word. I'll see you in the Empire, Princess. The carriage wheels began to turn, slowly moving forward. Sophia tried to reassure her. Princess, it seems His Majesty doesn't dislike you. But Liliana clutched her skirt tightly, thinking no, Sophia. A wave of fear washed over her. If he's actually interested in me, that's even worse. In the original story, Helio and Liliana had 2 children, both conceived for political reasons. The first was lost due to complications during pregnancy, and she was still recovering when the second was born, after which she died. Liliana shook her head, trying to compose herself. I don't want to die so tragically. Sophia, confused, asked Princess. She frowned and thought, I have to find a way to make the Emperor not notice me. The procession continued on its way, Helio occasionally glancing back with a smile. Then, he suddenly turned to a nearby guard. Have you ever kept a squirrel as a pet? The guard, taken aback, replied, Yes, I have. Helio reminisced. I saw a relative keeping one when I was young. He continued, out of curiosity, I gave it a lot of nuts and biscuits, but its cheeks couldn't hold them all, so it just stood there frozen. The guard chuckled. How cute. I bet it was trying to figure out how to carry them all home. Unexpectedly, Helio said, cute. His expression turned cold, the way it was thinking with its little head. The guard, stunned, looked at him in confusion. Helio continued to ponder this. He also had a daring side. He recalled Liliana's words. As a hostage, I don't have much value. He thought to himself, I didn't expect her to say that. A knowing smile spread across his face. It seems observing Liliana won't be boring. Exhausted, Liliana had fallen asleep. Suddenly, a commotion outside startled her awake. Liliana quickly asked Sophia, What's happening? Sophia looked excitedly out the window. Princess, look outside. A large crowd was waiting eagerly. We've arrived in the Carlo Empire. Liliana slowly stepped out of the carriage, thinking, now that I think about it, we stopped at many places along the way. Suddenly, her ankle twisted, but Emperor Helio caught Liliana just in time, holding her in his arms. He even asked gently, Are you all right? Liliana turned her head shyly. I'm fine. She looked forward in astonishment. Before her stood an incredibly magnificent and imposing castle. She thought, shocked. Compared to the Empire, Miata truly is just a small country. Father actually tried to raise the price of magic stones in such an empire, and even started a war. Emperor Helio instructed, the attendants will take you to the Emerald Palace. That is where you will reside from now on. His tone was indifferent. It's not actually that big. Liliana followed the guide, her surprise difficult to conceal. The place she was about to live in was so spacious inside. Not that big. Suddenly, a maid spoke. Your Majesty, the Empress. She reported, what's this? This is a letter personally delivered by His Majesty. Liliana accepted the letter and held it up to read. You said in the letter that all the maids are actually guards, so don't even think about escaping. Unexpectedly, Liliana's face paled instantly, and she angrily crumpled the letter into a ball. That crazy emperor. She secretly made up her mind. Since things had come to this, there was only one way to go. In a beautifully decorated white room, Liliana called out, Sophia. She asked, Sophia, can you find me some medicine? Sophia, surprised and a little worried, immediately asked medicine. Are you feeling unwell somewhere? Liliana explained, no. Come closer. Okay. She carefully gestured for Sophia to approach, then said, well, Liliana leaned close to Sophia's ear and whispered, I'm talking about medicine to prevent pregnancy. Sophia cried out in shock. How could you? Princess Liliana pleaded urgently. Please, Sophia, I really don't want to have a child. Sophia explained seriously, Princess, this kind of medicine is not only difficult to find, but if you secretly buy it from the black market, do you know what's actually in it? She said worriedly, what if you contract some strange illness? Liliana avoided the question, turning her head away. This era isn't as advanced as mine. She thought sadly to herself, I understand why Sophia is worried, but I'm really scared. I'm breaking out in a cold sweat. If I have to choose between dying after giving birth to the female lead and getting sick from taking strange medicine. She pleaded with Sophia with puppy dog eyes, but Sophia was very firm. Even if you look at me like that, the answer is still no. Sophia immediately lectured Liliana. Princess, don't you think living alone in the palace is too lonely? Having a child at least won't be so lonely. Liliana froze, suddenly understanding. And haven't you already agreed to accept the right of succession to the Miata throne? She understood. This way, there would be no war over the succession, and she wouldn't have to worry about the child's future. Night deepened, and the moonlight outside the window was exceptionally bright. In the quiet room, Liliana still couldn't sleep, repeatedly pondering the child's future. Liliana still couldn't fall asleep, constantly recalling, how did the female lead in the novel survive? She wasn't sent back to the Miata Kingdom. She remembered that in the original story, as the Lord of the Elves, the female lead stood out and caught the Emperor's attention. Before that, Liliana was treated as a burden in the palace. The little girl hid in the corner, peeking sadly. Thinking of this, Liliana sighed. She reminds me of myself when I was little. She quickly shook her head. No, I have to focus on myself first. Then Liliana forced herself to calm down, determined. I have to find that medicine myself, and I have to avoid the Emperor's attention. I absolutely cannot die young after giving birth like in the original story. That's the decision I made yesterday. Liliana was having breakfast when she suddenly received an unexpected invitation. The Empress Dowager wants to see me. The maid announced. Yes, because you had a long journey yesterday and needed to rest. The Empress Dowager is formally summoning you today. Liliana couldn't help but worry. The Empress Dowager is like his mother, which means she's my mother-in-law, right? Do I have to go pay my respects every day? The maid immediately reassured her, no, the Empress Dowager doesn't like that kind of formality, so you only need to go when summoned. She said it's just to say hello. A short while later, Liliana quickly tidied her clothes. But why am I still so nervous? The maid led the way. Please follow me. Liliana was extremely surprised by what she saw and couldn't help but ask, shouldn't we be going to the Empress Dowager's palace? Why are we entering a forest? This isn't a forest, it's just a small garden. The Empress Dowager likes plants, so she built this garden in the palace. Liliana looked around. I thought it was a forest, but it turns out it's a garden. The Carlo Empire does everything on such a grand scale. Finally, they arrived, and the maid slowly pushed open the door. Inside sat a very noble lady, Princess Liliana of the Miata Kingdom. She turned around gently and said, come in. Liliana quickly curtsied. It's an honor to meet you. The Empress Dowager asked, "Are you Princess Liliana?" Liliana immediately replied, "Yes, I am." The Empress Dowager then gently invited her, "Please, sit down." Liliana carefully observed her, thinking to herself, "So this is the Empress Dowager." Looking at Liliana, she remarked, "Now that I see her, she really does resemble Helios." The Empress Dowager then gently inquired, "It must have been a difficult journey for you, coming from such a distant land." Liliana responded without hesitation, "Not at all. His Majesty has been very kind to me. Although we lost the war, I believe it was His Majesty's grace that allowed my homeland to remain. I'm grateful for his leniency." Hearing this, the Empress Dowager lowered her head and smiled faintly. "Your homeland?" Then, without any reservation, she confided, "I understand how you feel. I also came to the Carlo Empire as a foreign bride." Liliana was shocked to hear this. Now that she thought about it, the Empress Dowager had also come here as a hostage and become the Empress. The Empress Dowager continued to reminisce, "I was very young when I arrived, and I miss my homeland terribly." Her eyes held a hint of sadness. It was a peaceful place, filled with sunshine and lush trees. Recalling her younger self, she said, "Although my body remained in the Carlo Empire, my heart always yearned for home. I was always melancholic. Back then, Helio Carlo was just a child. Mother, I won the swordsmanship competition today, but at the time, she hadn't even wanted to look back at him. She hadn't cared about the emperor at all. After giving birth to him, she had simply stood up in silence. She had left him there alone. Because of her, the emperor had never experienced a mother's warmth." Hearing this, Liliana felt a pang of unease. Seeming to sense this, the Empress Dowager gave an awkward laugh. "I'm sorry, did I say too much about myself?" She quickly explained, "What I meant to say is that His Majesty can be quite aloof. Please try to understand him. He isn't as cold as he appears." Liliana simply nodded. In the original story, the Empress Dowager and Helio didn't have a good relationship. Could it be that the Empress Dowager was regretting her past actions? Suddenly, a thought occurred to her. She froze. Liliana forced a smile and stammered, "His Majesty has been very kind to me." The Empress Dowager said cheerfully, "I heard the two of you are getting along normally." Liliana frowned, uncomfortably recalling, "Normally? Who's spreading such nonsense? Anyone can say that. It's like prey meeting a predator." The Empress Dowager continued gently, "If you don't mind, we could have afternoon tea together sometime. I'd like to chat with my future daughter-in-law about pleasant things." Liliana was surprised. Certainly, but inwardly, she thought, "Everyone says it's best not to see your mother-in-law too often." Suddenly, the Empress Dowager glanced at her. "It would be wonderful if you could share some stories about His Majesty." Just then, footsteps approached. It was Helio Carlo. "His Majesty has arrived." He looked coldly at the two women without saying a word. Liliana's eyes widened in surprise. Helio Carlo frowned uncomfortably. "I came to pay my respects. Why is Princess Liliana here?" The Empress Dowager immediately replied, "I summoned her. I thought she should show some courtesy." He sarcastically remarked to the Empress Dowager, "I didn't expect you to take an interest in the future Empress." She calmly sipped her tea. "Is that so?" Liliana could only manage a strained smile. The atmosphere was frigid. She hadn't expected the conversation between mother and son to be so cold. Liliana quickly stood up. "Then I'll excuse myself. Please continue your conversation." She hurried away, leaving the mother and son to watch her go. Helio Carlo then asked seriously, "What are you trying to do? You've never cared about internal affairs or my work before." She simply replied calmly, "I think perhaps it's time I started." Elio Carlo scolded. "You say time now." He realized something. "You're not sympathizing with Liliana just because she's a hostage, are you?" She remained silent. Helio Carlo turned away uncomfortably. "No matter what you do now," he promptly left, adding before he disappeared, "You still can't return to your homeland." Hearing this, she frowned sadly, gazing at his retreating figure. As for Liliana, she was hurrying away. The maids behind her chased after her, trying to stop her. "Princess, please walk slowly in the palace." Liliana couldn't help but feel agitated by what had just transpired. It had been a brutal exchange between mother and son. "Thank goodness I'm a fast runner." Suddenly, a maid shouted, "Princess, watch out." Liliana finally reacted, just as a loud crash echoed. She had collided with someone, and they both fell to the ground. The maids rushed over. "Are you all right?" Liliana clutched her nose and apologized profusely. "I'm so sorry. I wasn't looking where I was going." "Are you all right?" The red-haired woman angrily turned and snapped. "How dare you?" She raged. "Who is this little thing daring to push the future Empress?" Liliana fearfully stood up. "I am sorry." She looked at the woman, just as a maid beside her said, "Your Majesty, the princess. This is the Duke Gaville's daughter," she introduced. Miss Vesti Gaville promised to be the future empress. Looking at her, Liliana thought, now I remember, in the original story, only one person was considered for empress, Vesti Gaville. She's the villain who constantly antagonizes the female lead. She's also the culprit behind Liliana losing her first child. Liliana couldn't help but feel apprehensive, but she isn't the official empress yet, right? Gabrielle walked towards her, fan in hand, lifted Liliana's chin, and asked arrogantly, "I've already asked, who is this impertinent little thing?" Liliana looked at Gabrielle, bewildered. She acted as if she were already an important figure in the royal family. The maid immediately introduced, "This is Princess Liliana of the Kingdom of Miata, the one His Majesty will soon marry." Upon hearing this, Gabrielle scoffed derisively. "Miata, you say?" She immediately sneered, "The princess of a defeated nation. Huh." Liliana patiently endured, refusing to be drawn into such a petty provocation. If she is to be empress, her status will be higher than mine. Without hesitation, she lowered her head and said, "I sincerely apologize for what just happened, Miss Vesti. I was careless and didn't watch where I was going. My name is Liliana." Then Liliana asked, "Are you looking for His Majesty?" "He just went to the Empress Dowager's palace." Gabrielle said somewhat uncomfortably, "No need." She added haughtily, "I was just taking a look at the Emerald Palace. I find it quite beautiful, as it is a gift bestowed by His Majesty." Then, turning to Liliana, she mocked, "But honestly, there's nothing special about it." Gabrielle confidently criticized, "It's too small. It can't compare to my family's estate at all." Liliana could only reply, surprised, "I am grateful for everything His Majesty has bestowed upon me, regardless of its size." Gabrielle wrinkled her brow smugly. "You're really quite short-sighted and self-satisfied, aren't you? But then again, this is just one of the many palaces of the Empress." Liliana could only force a smile, thinking, ridiculous. When was I ever self-satisfied? This is much better than where I lived in Miata. Gabrielle still didn't want to stop taunting her. "Of course, it's comparable to Miata." She continued to provoke. "Even if it's only in name, His Majesty is still willing to take a penniless princess like you as empress." Liliana thought, I know what you're going to say now. She understood the other woman's thoughts at this moment. "You're unhappy that His Majesty brought me back to be empress, and you want to humiliate me publicly." Liliana could only sigh and choose to back down. "But no matter what, I don't intend to antagonize you, Miss Vesti. I'll return to my room now." Suddenly, a slap rang out, startling the maids. Gabrielle slapped her without hesitation, and Liliana faltered. "How dare you?" she threatened fiercely, sighing in front of the future empress. "Are you crazy?" Gabrielle continued to berate her. "You're nothing more than a captive brought back after the war. Once I become empress, someone like you." Liliana frowned and glanced back at her. Then, without hesitation, she raised her hand. Gabrielle froze, her face instantly paling. But Liliana suddenly stopped. She closed her eyes and endured for a moment, then lowered her hand. And she calmly said, "There's a bug." With that, Liliana curtsied and excused herself. "Excuse me." She left with her mates. Gabrielle gritted her teeth and growled angrily. She shouted, "I'll let you off the hook this time." Back in her room, Sophia cried out in a panic, "Goodness, princess, what happened to your face?" Sophia quickly ordered, "Bring ointment and ice quickly. Your face is all red and swollen." "What happened?" She stammered. "Was it the Empress Dowager?" But Liliana just smiled and brushed it off. "It's nothing, Sophia. I'm fine. Can you have the maids leave for a bit? I want to rest." Sophia was still worried. "Are you sure it's nothing serious?" Liliana forced a smile. "I just bumped into something on the way." She put the ice pack on her face and thought, "Even though I said that, the place where I was hit still hurts." Then she clenched the ice pack angrily. I should have hit her back. But she calmed down again. "No, it's good that I didn't." Liliana pondered. What good would it do for an ordinary concubine like me to touch someone who is about to become empress? She thought worriedly, "I don't want to have children, but I also don't want to be kicked out of the palace with nothing." Liliana couldn't help but recall what had just happened. Besides, how dare she be so brazen? Does she think she'll be treated like me? Sadness filled her face. "Oh well, I'm used to enduring anyway." By this time, Helio Carlo had already learned of the incident. He frowned and asked. She was slapped. The servant recounted everything. Yes, it happened in the hallway of the Emerald Palace. I and several maids were present. He immediately fell into deep thought as the afternoon sun began to fade. Liliana suddenly woke up, looking around in a daze. How'd I sleep for so long? Where's Sophia? Is there no one here? Liliana then remembered what she had said to Sophia. If anything happens, wake me. I understand now, right? I said I wanted to rest and didn't want to be disturbed. She looked at her gradually healing wound in the mirror. The healing was quick. The swelling had gone down, though it was still a little red. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Liliana hurried over and called out, Sophia. The door opened immediately, and unexpectedly, the person who entered was Helio Carlo. Both of them stopped and looked at each other. Liliana couldn't help but be surprised. Wait, he asked her with concern. Your Majesty, are you awake? Helio Carlo said, I heard you haven't left your room since this morning. Liliana stammered. That's because she had to find an excuse. I wasn't feeling well, but the red mark on her cheek was still clearly visible. But I'm fine now. He frowned, noticing it. Helio Carlo already knew, but simply said, I understand. Liliana wondered, why does he keep staring at me? She asked awkwardly, it's so late. Is there something you need? Helio Carlo slowly sat down by the bed and teased with a mysterious smile. Why would the Emperor come to the Empress's chambers? Helio Carlo hesitated for a moment, then said, if not for the obvious reason. He looked up at Liliana and said teasingly, isn't there only one reason for the Emperor to come to the Empress's chambers? Liliana gradually drifted in her own thoughts. The only reason. Suddenly, a voice echoed in her mind, accompanied by the sound of a judge's gavel. Order, order. A miniature Liliana dressed in a judge's uniform said sternly, what do the plaintiff and the defendant have to say about the previous statement? Liliana, at the defense table, raised her hand. The defense will speak first. Defense Liliana stated firmly, he just came to check on the room. After all, this is the room he gave her. He just wanted to see if everything was all right. Plaintiff Liliana was not to be outdone. Objection. Coming to a girl's room at this hour doesn't prove anything. Plaintiff Liliana continued to express her opinion. Isn't this what married couples do? Defense Liliana immediately covered her face with her hands in shame. This person is so embarrassing. She's just avoiding the issue. Plaintiff Liliana refused to back down. What can avoiding the problem solve? We have to find a way to avoid this situation immediately. We haven't even prepared the medicine yet. While Liliana was still blushing and lost in thought, Helio Carlo couldn't understand what she was thinking. Her face was about to explode. Helio Carlo suddenly realized something. Embarrassed by her earlier thoughts, Liliana didn't dare look directly at Helio Carlo. She held her arms across her chest, clearly bewildered. Suddenly, Helio Carlo touched Liliana's cheek. Liliana's eyes widened in surprise. Startled, she instinctively recoiled and covered her mouth, but still couldn't suppress a small sound. Eek. Liliana watched awkwardly as Helio Carlo slowly stood up. Your Majesty. He approached her. Helio gently lifted Liliana's flushed face and softly called, Princess. He said to her, that person, I should. But before he could finish, Liliana interrupted him. Helios Carlo, Your Majesty, we're not married yet, are we? Helios Carlo was taken aback. What? He covered his mouth, chuckling, then burst out laughing. Ha! Liliana was bewildered by his laughter. Helio poked her cheek, and Liliana instinctively cried out, ah. He looked at Liliana and smiled. You're more obvious than you think. She held her newly poked cheek and looked at Helio Carlo blankly. Helio Carlo continued, I was going to ask if anyone had done anything to you, because your face looks a little swollen. Liliana quickly explained, I fell. He crossed his arms and questioned, on your face. Liliana explained again, yes, I fell on the floor. No, I bumped into the wall. I wasn't looking where I was going. But Helio Carlo didn't seem to care. He thought to himself, half of that is true. He looked closely at Liliana, pondering, but I still don't understand. He scrutinized the person before him. I thought Miss Gaville might have caused trouble. Then he looked away. Liliana heard Helio Carlo continue to ask, I heard Miss Gabrielle came by today. Did she hit you? She looked up at him. The maid told her that young lady might become Empress. Liliana quickly averted her gaze and reluctantly replied, yes. She explained, that's why I endured it. I'll continue to endure it in the future. Helio Carlo was somewhat perplexed. He hesitated, then asked her why. Liliana hadn't expected him to ask that and was momentarily stunned. Helio Carlo, not waiting for her reaction, continued, do you really have to endure it when you're provoked? Liliana, now angry, retorted, are you crazy saying such a thing? Helio Carlo wore a troubled expression. Sigh, if the two of you really go to war, you'll be the only one who suffers. Her cheeks puffed out, eyes wide. Helio looked at Liliana. All right, this time I'll protect you, so don't endure it anymore. Liliana stared at him in surprise. Helio turned to leave. I'll be going now. But before leaving, he looked back. After the Empress's coronation ceremony, we'll discuss the matter you've been concerned about. Liliana froze for a moment, then quickly recovered, her cheeks flushing. Who said I've been concerned about it? She exclaimed. Helio thought to himself, this girl is truly hard to understand. He recalled her words, whether you take me away or not, it's no threat to Miata. She dared to speak so frankly before him. Helio thought, now she's just gloomy because Miss Gabrielle slapped her. He paused and stopped. No, he recalled Liliana's appearance just now. She wasn't gloomy. Helio's expression turned serious. He crossed his arms and leaned against the wall, pondering. She wasn't expecting me to protect her. That makes me somewhat displeased. In the dining room, Liliana was eating, pushing the mushrooms around her plate with a spoon. Seeing this, Sophia asked worriedly, Princess, are you not hungry? Or does the food not suit your taste? Liliana quickly denied it. No, it's not that. She forced a smile, but her face was pale. But did only I hear it? Liliana trembled, panic rising. I keep hearing a woman crying in the dining hall corridor. She stuffed a piece of bread into her mouth. Sophia seemed unperturbed. Could it be that I'm too tired and hallucinating? Today had indeed been a tiring day for Liliana. She slammed her hand on the table and stood up. Impossible. She turned to Sophia. I'm going to the restroom. Sophia looked puzzled. Liliana walked straight towards the restroom. As she walked, she tried to dispel the fear in her mind. I must have misheard because I'm too tired. I should at least wash my face before going back. Passing by a room, Liliana suddenly stopped and looked back. She stared at the gloomy wooden door, rubbing her hair. No matter how I think about it, the sound came from here. Her mind filled with scary stories. Could it be the ghost of a maid who died from overwork in the kitchen storage room? Or an enemy soldier who snuck in and is now crying while hugging a perfume bottle? Liliana's fear fueled her wild imagination. Finally, she made up her mind. All right, I'll go in and see. Her hand rested on the doorknob. I have to find out what it is. Pushing the door open, she saw the room was filled with dust. She coughed a few times. Is anyone there? So much dust. A voice suddenly rang out. Impossible. A sprite appeared before Liliana. The sprite looked at Liliana, asking hesitantly, can you hear my voice? The sprite was as surprised as Liliana, covering her mouth with her hand. Then, the sprite became excited. Can you see me? Liliana was still in a state of shock and speechlessness. Impossible. She confirmed her thought. It was a sprite. Liliana remembered that the first condition for becoming a sprite master was being able to see sprites. She recalled the original story. Lilith was an extraordinary sprite master, forming contracts with two joyful sprites at a young age. Liliana continued to think, now that I think about it, Helio has no talent for sprite magic. If it's genetic, perhaps it comes from my side. The sprite interrupted her thoughts. Hey, the sprite said happily, you can see me. She waved her hand in front of Liliana. Can you touch me? The sprite held out her hand to Liliana. Try and see if you can touch me. Come on. Liliana did as she was told. She stretched out her hand, and the sprite moved closer, their fingertips touching. Seeing that Liliana could actually touch her, the sprite was overjoyed. She flew up in excitement, while Liliana remained frozen in place. Oh my God, you can really touch me. You really have the talent to become a sprite master. It was then that Liliana noticed the chains on the sprite's feet. Seeing the chains, the sprite's face darkened. These shackles prevent me from flying farther, she said sadly. Liliana offered, should I find something to break them? The sprite shook her head. No, these can't be broken with ordinary tools. She looked at the jewel on the chains. I can sense the power of other sprites within it. The sprite sat dejectedly beside the jewel. Perhaps only a talented sprite master, or the sprite who created these shackles, can undo them. Then, she suddenly thought of something. The sprite flew to Liliana. I have a great idea. Do you want to learn sprite magic? Liliana pointed at herself. Me. The sprite replied, yes. I think you can definitely undo it. Liliana pondered, but I know nothing about sprite masters. I've only read a few books. She scratched her head awkwardly. Maybe we should find someone else. The sprite, however, was resolute. No, it has to be you. Do you know how powerful sprite magic is? The sprite explained that if she formed a contract with a sprite, she could freely borrow their power. But Liliana wasn't very interested. Oh, I understand. I've read all about it in novels. It's nothing new. The sprite continued, I'm a wind sprite. I can manipulate the wind according to your will, as long as you're powerful enough. Hearing this, an idea sparked in Liliana's mind. You can even fly. If that were true, Liliana asked the sprite, if I learn sprite magic, can I do that right away? The sprite became excited at this. Of course. Do you want to learn? Liliana thought, then I can use it to escape. So she agreed, picking up the crystal ball. All right, I'll do it. The sprite was ecstatic. Really? She introduced herself to the sprite. My name is Liliana. What's your name? The sprite replied happily, I'm Choo Choo. Nice to meet you. Back in the castle, Sophia urged, Princess, it's time to go. Liliana replied, I know. She wore a magnificent white wedding gown, her cheeks still slightly flushed. Sophia, beside her, exclaimed, Princess, you look beautiful today. Meanwhile, Choo Choo was calmly eating and drinking at the dining table, currently gnawing on a piece of bread. At that moment, Choo Choo noticed Liliana and blurted out, Liliana, you look so beautiful today. Where are you going now? Liliana held up a finger to her lips. Choo Choo, don't talk to me in front of so many people. Seeing that Liliana hadn't left yet, Sophia turned back and asked, Princess. Choo Choo, meanwhile, was puzzled. They can't see me anyway. Sophia asked worriedly, are you feeling unwell? You seem distracted lately. Liliana replied, I'm fine. But in her mind, she wondered, why do they keep asking? Do they think I'm strange? Sophia gently pushed Liliana's back. Then let's hurry. Today is very important. Liliana obediently replied, okay. Sophia then escorted her to the coronation ceremony. The weather was beautiful that day. They arrived at the ceremony venue, which was magnificently and grandly decorated with flowers. The Empress Dowager of the Carlo Empire was already there waiting for Liliana. She's here. Liliana lifted her skirt and curtsied. Greetings, Empress Dowager. A maid beside the Empress Dowager handed her a wooden box. Princess, please accept this. Inside was a crown. The maid helped Liliana put on the crown. The Empress Dowager rose and said to her, it must be difficult to take on the role of a wife without a wedding ceremony. Liliana turned her head, puzzled. The Empress Dowager approached her. I heard you were very fond of this garden when you visited my palace last time. The Empress Dowager continued, coronation ceremonies are usually held elsewhere, but consider this a small gesture of goodwill from me. Liliana felt a surge of gratitude. She's actually being considerate of me. As Liliana expressed her thanks, still slightly confused, a voice called out, Your Majesty. Helio had arrived. The attendant stammered, Why are you here? Helio appeared with an imposing presence. Liliana exclaimed in surprise, Your Majesty. He approached Liliana and the Empress Dowager. It seems I'm late. Liliana heard him say, I've been thinking about what to give you as a coronation gift. Helio extended his hand and smiled at Liliana. Come, I offer myself as your gift. The coronation ceremony began. The officiant read the vows. His Majesty Helio Carlo, Emperor of the Carlo Empire. Liliana was somewhat distracted, glancing surreptitiously at the man beside her. Takes Princess Liliana of the Kingdom of Miata as Empress of the Carlo Empire and vows to cherish and protect her. Wherever and whenever, the two stood side by side, but Liliana's expression was troubled. Today's ceremony was a testament to those vows. After the ceremony, Helio removed his gloves. He suggested, the ceremony is over. Let's return to Emerald Palace. Liliana asked, puzzled, are you going to escort me? Helio smiled faintly. The Emperor is escorting the Empress back to the palace. Is there something wrong with that? Liliana quickly denied it. No, that's not what I meant. She thought, I heard that most emperors don't attend these ceremonies, let alone participate personally. Helio was also somewhat perplexed, unsure of what Liliana meant. Liliana continued to ponder. Today's events will quickly spread throughout the capital through the nobles. In a few days, everyone will be talking about it. Everyone in the Carlo Empire will know. They'll think the emperor cherishes the empress very much. Even the commoners would be talking about it. Liliana recalled what he had said before. All right, this time I will protect you. She wondered, wait, will he really keep that vow? Helio leaned down and asked Liliana, what are you thinking about? Standing before the Emperor, Liliana's face was filled with confusion. Oh, Liliana seemed hesitant, but then she said earnestly, then please escort me. Your Majesty, she recalled Gabriel's slap. After experiencing so much, Helio suddenly extended his hand. Liliana placed her hand on his. He wants to protect me. I have no reason to refuse. She suddenly remembered something, right? Wait a minute. She stopped the Empress Dowager. Your Majesty. Liliana lifted her skirt and bowed. Thank you very much for today. The Empress Dowager smiled gently. You must be very tired today. Rest early. Before she could finish, Helio took Liliana's hand and led her away. Take care. Liliana looked bewildered. Wait a minuti. The Empress Dowager didn't speak. Liliana quickly thanked her. Thank you, Your Majesty. Liliana followed him. Your Majesty, she said to him, please stop pulling my hand. It really hurts now. Helio's hand loosened. He realized he was holding her too tightly and quickly let go. Liliana hurriedly withdrew her hand and rubbed her wrist. He apologized. I'm sorry. I didn't know holding a woman's hand like that would hurt. Liliana glared at him. You don't have to lie to me. Helio asked in return, what do you think I'm lying about? Liliana immediately said, you said you don't often hold women's hands. But Helio immediately defended himself. But it's true. He looked puzzled. Why do you think I've held so many women's hands? But quickly added, anyway, I'll try to break this habit. Liliana was a little surprised. Are you serious? You a poet? She looked at Helio and thought. I thought he was a playboy, had met many women, and didn't listen to anyone at all. Helio changed the subject. How is Emerald Palace? If you want, I can move you to another palace. Liliana shook her head. No need. He looked a little helpless. You answered too quickly. She was a little embarrassed. Emerald Palace suits me well. She continued, as you just saw, Miss Gabriel doesn't seem to like me very much. But I really like the garden in Emerald Palace. There's a lot of open space for planting flowers, and there's a swing. Liliana happily talked about her future plans. I'm going to plant apple trees, so I can pick apples later. Helio looked at her in surprise, crossed his arms, and leaned down. Will you share some with me? Liliana panicked. Liliana pretended not to hear him, and Helio didn't bother to repeat himself. The apples you pick. The corners of Liliana's mouth turned up slightly. She smiled. Okay, I'll share some with you then. Helio was stunned by this scene. He poked her forehead. Liliana exclaimed, what are you doing? I said I'd share with you. Helio leaned down to tease her. Of course I'll share. You know, nothing in Emerald Palace truly belongs to you. Liliana touched the spot where Helio had just poked her. Her cheeks flushed. Helio turned around. That's settled then. I'll be back tonight. Be ready. Liliana was puzzled. Why? Helio asked in return. You still ask why. Liliana was stunned by Helio's reply. The coronation ceremony is over. It's time to fulfill our marital obligations. Just then, Choo-Choo, who was playing with the birds outside the window, heard her call. Choo-Choo. Liliana rushed inside, panicked. We have to carry out the plan immediately tonight. On Helio's side, someone reported to him. Your Majesty. He stopped writing and looked up to listen. The Empress said she's ready. Helio stood up and replied, understood. As he walked, he thought, if I want to put pressure on the Miata kingdom as soon as possible, having an heir is the best way. Helio remembered Liliana's words. We're not married yet, are we? That scene kept replaying in his mind. Then wait. I'll wait. He sighed helplessly. Helio raised his hand and knocked on the door. Maybe I'll just tease her tonight. Without waiting for a response, he pushed the door open. Your Majesty, may I come in? As soon as he entered, Helio was startled by the scene before him. Liliana was standing on the edge of the balcony, teetering precariously. Helio rushed in. What are you doing? It's too dangerous. Hearing this, she looked back, hesitated for a moment, but still stepped out, closed her eyes tightly, and jumped. He cried out in panic. Helio tried to rush over and catch her, but it was too late. He panicked. He shouted, Your Majesty. He shouted, Your Majesty. Liliana was still dazed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Choo-Choo anxiously blamed herself. It's all my fault. What should I do? I'm sorry. Liliana comforted her. I'm fine. Don't cry. Helio Carlo shouted from above. Wake up, Your Majesty. Hey, Your Majesty. She wondered, are you worried about me? Once upon a time, a princess was born in the Miata kingdom. She was very lovely and had soft, pink hair like cotton candy. But unfortunately, no one was happy when she was born except for her mother. That's because her mother was just an ordinary maid, and the princess was an unexpected child. She ate simple meals and drank tea as light as water, but she wasn't sad at all. That's because the princess loved her world very much, and her mother was also very kind, but that happiness didn't last long. She was bullied by Prizel. How dare a lowly thing like you open your mouth? How dare you act so presumptuously, you dirty, disgusting thing? She even insulted her mother. Are you really a princess? Didn't your mother lie and say she was pregnant with someone else's child? Liliana stood up to resist. No, she cried out in terror. Aya! But her hand stopped in midair. She thought, I shouldn't hit her. If I do, mother will be in danger. When I was whipped for threatening Prizel, I realized one thing. My mother's cries hurt me more than the whip against my calves. No, my child, Liliana. She thought resentfully, Mother, don't cry. Next time I'll endure it more. I will definitely survive. I definitely will. Liliana suddenly woke up. Mother. Mother's voice was choked with sobs. Sophia, the maid, suddenly said, Princess, you're awake. She asked worriedly, why are you sweating so much? Doctor, I'm Fina, Sophia. It turns out the voice I heard was you crying. Sophia cried with worry. You fell from such a high place. How can I not be worried? Liliana thought, thanks to the wind's power, I can't even say I'm fine. Sophia continued crying. According to the doctor's examination, for the height you fell from, you're very lucky. She thought, it seems I'm not seriously injured, but Choo-Choo is worried. She suddenly woke up. That's right, Choo-Choo. Liliana screamed internally. Oh my God, how am I going to see Choo-Choo again? She could hear crying outside. Lily and Nia. Choo-Choo was crying worriedly at this moment. She thought, I need to stay like this for a few days. Sophia sighed. I heard the Emperor is very angry about this. Liliana was pleased. Really? Then maybe you'll be less interested in me. That's great. The maid outside called out, Excuse me, Your Majesty. Ah, Comaine. Liliana wondered what's wrong. The maid reported, Your Majesty. The Emperor has arrived at the Emerald Palace. Liliana said worriedly, What did you say? Ah, she asked herself, how could the person who was supposed to be so angry be here? Why? Helio leaned against the doorframe. It seems you're healthier than I thought. Liliana replied weakly, Greetings, Your Majesty, son of the Empire. I apologize for not being able to greet you personally, as I haven't fully recovered. It's all right, just stay lying down. He sat on the edge of the bed and asked, How are you feeling? She replied, I'm fine. He came not long after I opened my eyes. She thought, was he already on his way? He looked at her intently without saying a word. Helio sat closer to Liliana, startling her. Why? Why are you doing this? Her face flushed. No, it's important to keep a distance. Helio smiled. I've thought about this carefully. He continued, Your reason for refusing to be with me. She flinched guiltily, pretending to know nothing. But he thought, she's acting. He asked seriously, that accident was intentional, wasn't it? She replied, no. She turned away. How could it be? It was an accident. He smiled. Because I saw it with my own eyes. It was intentional. Liliana silently shed tears. Since you don't believe me, why even ask? Helio said, puzzled, am I that bad? Impossible. With this confidence, he turned to her confidently. He said narcissistically, I'm someone who knows their limits, and I've never been criticized for my appearance. So you don't like my personality? Well, I've met many people like that. He continued, but it seems that reason doesn't apply to you. She asked back, why do you think so? He leaned closer. I can tell from the way you speak. Stubborn and blunt. Helio continued, usually people avoid me for various reasons. She thought guiltily, but I've only ever met Mother, Sophia, or my sisters who hate me. So this is the first time someone has spoken to me so casually. Helio continued seriously. It seems I guessed right. Then what could be the reason? A child will become your strength and support. The reason you long to spend the night with me is because I wanted to give you strength in my own way. She replied sadly, yes, I know. I'm still grateful. He asked back, puzzled, then why? She thought silently, I heard you were very angry, but this person is in front of me, curious about my thoughts. It's just a guess. She clenched her fists. Ugh, if it really were a simple question. She said, Your Majesty. Liliana continued worriedly, I don't need strength. I just want to live a quiet life. He said, the Imperial Palace isn't a place where you can live quietly, just because you want to. She replied wearily, that's right. If I have a child, but don't have enough power, she said unhappily, then when the child is slapped by other royals. She clenched her fists. I can only tell them to endure it. If the child dies, I can only bury them alone. She recalled the past. Every time a child was married off for the sake of peace, it was like selling them. I couldn't do anything. Liliana continued. It's all right if I endure it. I can bear it, she said sadly, but I don't want my child to endure it too. He was startled. His hand clenched tightly, but he said nothing. Helio Carlo remembered calling for his mother when he was young. Mother. A maid was talking to her. Ah, it's been a month, hasn't it, mother? How have you been lately? Helio ran towards his mother, but they only passed each other. His small hand stopped in midair. Helio Carlo stood there resentfully on the verge of tears. They passed each other, yet he couldn't look back. It was truly painful. He pondered silently and asked her, is it the same for you? She let out a surprised ah. He shook his head. It's nothing. Anyway, you said you don't want an heir, right? Her eyes sparkled with delight as she replied, yes, I just want to live quietly, as if I were already dead. Helio Carlo considered her words and poked her cheek uncomfortably. You're saying too much in front of the Emperor. He sighed and stood up. I understand your current choice, so just focus on getting better. She was startled. Are you angry? He responded with a puzzled HM. He asked with a smile, what are you talking about? He continued, am I angry because you don't want to share a bed with the Emperor, or do I find your lack of desire for an heir disrespectful? His words made her tremble. She felt guilty. I heard you were very angry, but now you're here worrying about me, listening to me. He said earnestly, I'm not angry with you. If I wanted someone obedient, I wouldn't have chosen you in the first place, especially after seeing you try to run away. Right in front of me. He walked to the door, but turned back to remind her, if you need anything, call the servants. Don't do anything dangerous again. She thought blankly, what is this? Did he really come here because he was worried about me? Sophia exclaimed, Your Majesty, are you still conscious? What did you just say in front of His Majesty? Liliana felt guilty. I'm sorry, Sofa. Sophia thought silently for a moment, then took Liliana's hand and said, Your Majesty, I've thought about it carefully. Liliana responded with a puzzled HM. Thought about what? Sophia said sincerely, about the medicine you mentioned. I'll get it for you. Time passed, and Liliana received a letter. What gifts do women like? She pondered as she wrote back. After that, Helio didn't come to see me directly, but he occasionally sent gifts. Liliana thought happily. At first it was jewelry, then dresses. She covered her mouth and laughed. Now he's even sending me a sword. What a strange combination. She wrote back, well, something delicious is fine. Oh, I haven't fully recovered yet. Then she thought, should I say it like this? This way I'll have more time. She handed the letter to a servant and instructed, please give this to His Majesty. Choo-Choo flew over and asked, Liliana, what did you send? Liliana recalled the previous incident when she secretly saved Choo-Choo. After being rescued safely, Choo-Choo cried and hugged Liliana. Liliana, I missed you so much. Are you all right? Have you recovered? I'm sorry, I'm not strong enough. I'm fine, calm down, Choo-Choo. She answered Choo-Choo's previous question. Ah, it's nothing. She said cheerfully to Sophia, the weather is so nice today. Let's go for a walk. Sophia agreed. Only to the front of the palace, no further. Liliana and two maids were walking in the courtyard. She sat on a chair, and Sophia massaged her shoulders. Liliana enjoyed the fresh air, played with Choo-Choo, smiled gently, and felt happy. Suddenly, Choo-Choo saw someone approaching. Huh? Choo-Choo said, Liliana, someone is coming. Liliana looked up in surprise in the direction Choo-Choo indicated. She saw Helio Carlo there. Huh? Why is he here now? She was surprised and embarrassed. Ah, we made eye contact. She thought in a panic, no, it can't be. I just wrote a letter saying I haven't fully recovered yet. Liliana was extremely perplexed. What should I do? Run away. It's too late to run now, isn't it? She blamed herself. I should have stayed in my room. Helio was walking over when he saw something, stopped, and awkwardly turned to leave. She was surprised again. Huh, wait, is he leaving? Liliana stared at Helio. She asked what's wrong. The Empress Dowager appeared from somewhere. He must have decided to leave after seeing me. Hearing this, she quickly turned around in surprise. She exclaimed, Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager said, sit down. I've already heard about that matter. The Empress Dowager sat down. It seems you're feeling much better now. That's good. She bowed her head respectfully. Thank you, Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager smiled gently. Don't thank me. I'm the one who should be thanking you. Liliana humbly said, I haven't done anything yet. The Empress Dowager replied happily, you and my son have been getting along so well. Liliana sighed. His Majesty is too kind to someone as unremarkable as me. He's not one for pity. He knows those feelings are hopeless. He understands those feelings are useless. Liliana thought nervously, I may not fully understand her meaning, but I can't let my guard down now. My focus needs to be on the Empress Dowager. This isn't an occasion for casual conversation. Usually, the Empress Dowager would ask her, do you know why His Majesty feels that way? Liliana would reply, I'm afraid my understanding is limited. I can't comprehend it. The Empress Dowager would say, sadly, it's because of me. Liliana would fall silent in surprise, unable to speak. Looking into the distance, she said, that child pities me, but he gained nothing from it. The Empress Dowager continued sadly, didn't I tell you before? I was also a bride from a foreign land. I understand how you feel. I was also brought to the Carlo Empire from a foreign land. Liliana replied respectfully, yes, I remember. The Empress Dowager spoke as if burdened with worries. I always wanted to return to my homeland. Later, my homesickness turned into an illness, and I stopped participating in any court activities, becoming increasingly frail. See me like that, the late emperor told me. She recalled the late emperor's words, bear an heir, Empress. If you bear an heir, I will send you back to your homeland. After finishing, she turned to Liliana. It seems you already have the answer, don't you? Don't you? Liliana was now extremely surprised, worried, and wary. The Empress Dowager continued, when I gave birth to Helio, the late emperor told me to wait until the child was weaned. He was truly sincere at that time. She told Liliana about Helio Carlo, but Helio wasn't an ordinary child. She said his talent was extraordinary. Intelligent wasn't enough to describe him. She said, the late emperor also saw Helio Carlo's brilliance. Everyone in the palace could see it. Helio possessed the qualities to become an extraordinary person. Liliana countered, but even a bright child needs their mother, don't they? The Empress Dowager replied, that's right. The late emperor wanted Helio to become the crown prince, to support him, and he also wanted me to support Helio. She recalled painfully, when I was 19, I finally lost the chance to return to my homeland. Liliana said thoughtfully, 19. Even if early marriage and childbirth were encouraged in that era, that's still very young. It must have been confusing. She looked very afraid. The Empress Dowager lowered her head sadly. Youth can't be an excuse for all mistakes, but back then, I was afraid of my husband, and my child was still so young. She added, and then she recalled her days in the palace. When Helio Carlo was young and ill, the child earnestly called out, Mother, Mother. Even when exhausted, the child kept calling, Mother. The Empress Dowager stood outside the door, but didn't go in to comfort him. She remembered that scene. I chose revenge, she said to Liliana. At that time, her only goal was to defy the late emperor. She continued, from then on, we interacted like strangers. He returned from the battlefield. She said with worry and sadness. Then one day, she continued sadly. He launched a coup, seized the throne, and told me. Helio Carlo said, you must become the Empress Dowager. She appeared incredibly pained as she recalled, you can never return to your homeland, Mother. She continued, hearing those words, I realized that everything I'd done had come back to haunt me. Helio, just like me, was filled with anger and consumed by rage. The Empress Dowager clasped her hands tightly and asked, do you know why I'm telling you all this? Liliana thought, surprised, worried, and uneasy. She's not simply trying to give me advice. She's telling me this because she wants something from me. Liliana knelt respectfully. Please forgive me, Your Majesty, but this doesn't seem like something a commoner like me should interfere with. The Empress Dowager stood up in a fluster. Empress Liliana. Liliana continued respectfully, I don't believe all the blame should fall on you, Your Majesty, but neither do I think our new emperor should be condemned. Liliana continued respectfully, this matter is too difficult for someone as dull-witted as me. Please allow me to take my leave. Choo-Choo anxiously grabbed Liliana's skirt. The Empress Dowager said, the King of Miata is that cruel father who abandoned you. I understand how you feel. I made an inappropriate request of you. Liliana was startled. No, Your Majesty. The Empress Dowager extended her hand. Don't kneel anymore. I'm afraid His Majesty will blame me for mistreating the Empress. The Empress Dowager helped her up and then smiled. She bowed respectfully. I'll take my leave, Your Majesty. Yes, go ahead. Liliana left, and the Empress Dowager watched her go, a trace of sadness and regret in her eyes. Liliana reminded Sophia to rest. I'll contact you later. Sophia replied, yes, Your Majesty. Please rest well. Liliana lay wearily on the bed, pondering. If someone were to be held accountable, the late emperor deserved the most punishment. But if she thought about it that way, Helio wasn't at fault at all. He bore the brunt of the Empress Dowager's vengeance alone. What wrong could a child like him have possibly committed? Honestly, I don't want to forgive my father, nor do I want to reconcile with him now. Perhaps Helio feels the same. If I had to choose, I think I'd side with His Majesty. Choo-Choo suddenly rushed over, interrupting her thoughts. Liliana, you're trying to avoid that person again, aren't you? Calm down. Feeling a pang of guilt, she replied, this is different. Choo-Choo retorted, no, you're just smitten with that handsome face. Liliana was speechless, unable to refute. Liliana, Choo-Choo yelled, covering her ears. Liliana jumped onto the bed. I don't know. A few days later, while she was concentrating on practicing magic, she suddenly heard a knock on the door. She stopped and complained wearily, I thought I was close to grasping it. This soul magic is harder than I imagined. She said, come in. A maid reported, Your Majesty, I have something to report. The Empress Dowager personally cooked and sent a meal for Your Majesty. She thought in surprise, she cooked it herself. At least she's making an effort. And then, the maid reported, His Majesty threw all the food away. She froze. What? What did you say? Liliana asked in astonishment. The maid replied, he threw all the food away. Yes, Your Majesty. Liliana was taken aback, thinking, no, why would he do that? Doesn't he care about his image? Liliana thought with a headache, no, why would he care? And how did I manage to escape the Empress Dowager's proposal? All right, I understand. You may leave. The maid bowed her head and withdrew. Yes, Your Majesty. No, but why throw the food away? It's such a waste, she said angrily. Choo-Choo immediately consoled Liliana. Are you getting angry because of that man again? Don't tell me you actually like him. Liliana suddenly shrieked. No. Startled, the maid glanced back. Liliana stammered awkwardly. I'll be seen as a weirdo. It's nothing. Hurry up and go. Yes. Pretending nothing had happened, she waved the maid away. Afterwards, Liliana frowned and reminded Choo-Choo, don't talk to me when there are other people around. TSK. She sighed, trying to compose herself. Oh well, I was interrupted. I'll have to try again. She slowly raised her hands in front of her. All right. Liliana gradually felt a blue light coiling around her like a snake, slowly wrapping around her hands. The light gradually converged on the iron ball in front of her. Just a little more. Choo-Choo watched in amazement. Liliana gasped, and Choo-Choo cheered happily. Liliana, that's amazing. You did it. She smiled happily. I think I know how to visualize it now. I can do it next time too. Choo-Choo continued to praise her. I knew you could do it. You're a genius. Liliana gradually grew confident, thinking, focus and increase my power. We'll definitely be able to escape. At that moment, Helio Carlo said, seriously, let me stay the night. Liliana froze, hardly believing her ears. What did you just say? She asked again, bewildered. Helio Carlo calmly sipped his tea and explained, that old fox keeps pestering me. I need a place to hide. Please take me in. Liliana tearfully recalled that incident. Everything was the same. Time had passed, and His Majesty had thrown the food away again. Once again, His Majesty had thrown the food away. Your Majesty, it seems like it's the same as before. When will you eat? Please tell me. She could only ask helplessly, why don't you go somewhere more comfortable to sleep? Although, I suppose nowhere will be comfortable. He smirked. Don't worry, I won't lay a finger on you. I know what you're thinking. He playfully nudged her with his foot under the table. What other emperor could be as considerate as me? Liliana said shyly, please don't do that. She looked at him, perplexed. Liliana carefully observed Helio Carlo. When you smile like that, you're really handsome. She couldn't help but think. Even the statues in the temple can't compare to you. Liliana unconsciously reached out her hand. He exclaimed in surprise, Your Majesty. Helio Carlo asked, what's wrong? She turned her head shyly. Nothing. Liliana's heart pounded in her chest. What am I thinking? Am I crazy? He put down his teacup and hurried to her side. Your Majesty. Liliana was startled. Helio Carlo leaned down, close to her. He chuckled. You. Liliana was both embarrassed and flustered. Too close. No. She cried out in fear, don't. Unexpectedly, Helio Carlo teased. You look like a little chick in that outfit. Liliana stared at him, stunned. A chick. She pouted angrily. This outfit. This is a gift from Your Majesty. I worked very hard to put it on. But he continued to press. What do you mean not? What are you thinking? Liliana quickly waved her hands in denial. What do you mean? Helio Carlo teased. Don't pretend you don't know. She stammered a room. I'll prepare a separate room for you. But he said seriously, nonsense. What kind of rumors are you trying to spread? I'm sleeping in the same bed as you. No discussion. But you said you wouldn't even touch me with a finger. Carlo immediately replied, I'm not interested in girls who don't like me. Liliana hurriedly answered, I understand. He smiled and extended his hand, teasing, do you want to be the first empress in history to reject the emperor? At the door, she shyly submitted, I don't care how history remembers me, and I don't know what rumors will spread tomorrow. Liliana slowly approached him, thinking, well, you don't think the emperor of the Carlo Empire would go back on his word, do you? Liliana, suddenly Carlo said, I wouldn't mind if it were today. Her cheeks flushed, and she quickly withdrew her hand, exclaiming, what are you saying? He simply smiled in response. You'll understand soon enough. Carlo immediately reassured her. So don't worry, sleep well tonight. Go and change your clothes. Night fell, and only the faint glow of the night light remained. The two lay in bed together, silent. Liliana tossed and turned, unable to sleep. She finally spoke. Thank you, Your Majesty. Carlo asked coldly for what? Liliana replied, for accepting my eccentricities and stubbornness. He simply replied, what strange things are you thinking about again? Stop worrying and go to sleep. Liliana said, confused, but Carlo immediately closed his book and teased, or do you actually want something else? Liliana was startled and quickly turned away. Good night. She then fell asleep at some point. He watched her intently, thinking, strange, such a small person can curl up even smaller. Carlo remained seated, pondering the words eccentricities and stubbornness. Yes, those words were accurate. Sometimes, making mistakes is important, and bringing someone here as a hostage isn't difficult. He closed his book, but if I do that, I'll be hated later. Then he slowly pulled the blanket over her. It's nothing special. No, it shouldn't become something special. Liliana turned her head in surprise to look at him, but for some reason, he didn't want to see that expression. He thought softly to himself, if I want an heir, I'll have to think of another way. At that moment, Carlo smiled at her, thinking, for example, making her fall in love with me. Liliana blushed and flustered. Why are you so close? She was both bewildered and puzzled. Didn't he just cover me with a blanket? Why? Was he afraid I'd catch a cold? How could he be so gentle? Carlo continued to gaze at her calmly, amused by these expressions. Liliana couldn't stand it any longer and immediately sat up. Your Majesty, she asked shyly, why are you so good to me? Carlo was surprised to hear this. He leaned closer to her and replied, that's because Liliana was sweating profusely. He was too close. But he simply joked, I won't have to smell those terrible dishes tomorrow. She froze upon hearing this. He continued to tease. Were you expecting another reason? Liliana shyly evaded. No, I mean, that's true too. Carlo turned away and said, the whole world says I'm a heartless son, but you don't seem to think so. Liliana could only reply, if I didn't like it. Then what? He frowned and asked, didn't my mother tell you? She must have told you her story over and over again. She decided it's a sad story. Then why did you refuse her request? Liliana froze at those words, her hands clenching tightly. Liliana slowly pulled down the blanket, suddenly stood up, and lowered her head, much to Carlo's surprise. Liliana said, I'm sorry. I do think the Empress Dowager's story is tragic. She explained, but that doesn't mean her mistakes can be erased. Liliana expressed her thoughts. No one in this world has the right to say Your Majesty is a heartless son. She continued, because from the beginning, no one has endured what you have. Hearing this, Carlo simply turned away without saying a word. I know this is a bit presumptuous, and silence fell between the two in the room. But now, maybe I'm the only one who can make him understand. Then he turned around. Carlo reached out and said to her, now you. He lifted Liliana's chin and questioned, are you pitying me? Carlo's gaze became terrifying. At this moment, Liliana was terrified, thinking, did I say something wrong? She trembled, but now there was no way to take back her words. But she quickly explained, yes, Your Majesty, I pity your childhood. Liliana could only confess, I understand very well what it feels like to be completely ignored by your parents. After saying these words, she closed her eyes in fear and waited, trembling. But Carlo simply released her hand. He didn't say anything, just leaned against the pillows. Liliana thought, terrified, what is this? He's actually letting me off the hook. Carlo frowned. Aren't you going to sleep? Liliana hurriedly pulled up the covers, stammering, nothing. She hesitated. Thank you, Your Majesty. He glanced at her coldly. You knelt even with your injury. Suddenly, he asked, your father didn't even know your name, did he? Liliana was surprised. You remember that? He just smiled. I've always known. How could I not understand the affairs of such a small country? I understand what you mean. Now lie down and sleep. She breathed a sigh of relief and stole a glance at him. He was smiling faintly. It seems I've escaped this time. Liliana closed her eyes and lay still. Helio Carlo sat there, watching her intently. Suddenly, she called out again, Your Majesty. A strand of her hair was wrapped around his hand. You've called me many times today. What is it now? Liliana said innocently, If I have a child, please don't be indifferent to them. She immediately explained, Just think, if a child born to two adults who were neglected as children also grows up in indifference, wouldn't that be pitiful? Liliana turned to look at him, thinking, of course, I'll try my best to avoid having children. But she closed her eyes and said, if things really turn out like the original story. She didn't notice her hand lightly brushing against his. Whether it's for the throne or any other reason, it doesn't matter. Liliana has always hoped that, please don't let the child feel lonely. I only wish that little one could have a more comfortable life. Helio Carlo looked at her tenderly. I understand. Liliana looked at him. Then sleep, Your Majesty. It's late. Helio Carlo simply nodded slightly. But in his heart, he was puzzled, not understanding her words just now. Why did she speak as if she wouldn't be around in the future? Helio Carlo wondered if she planned to disappear after giving birth. The next morning, Liliana slowly opened her eyes and woke up, immediately hearing him tease. Mornings start quite late in the Emerald Palace. Helio Carlo had already woken up and was sitting up, reading intently. Still sleepy, Liliana thought, Did you even sleep at all? You're so bright and alert this early. She sat up and rubbed her eyes. There's nothing urgent that requires me to get up early. Unless I have to visit the Empress Dowager, no one would complain about me sleeping in. Unexpectedly, he chuckled sarcastically. Then why haven't you grown any taller? Liliana grumbled. You're picking on me first thing in the morning. Seeing this, Helio Carlo suddenly burst out laughing, leaving her to watch helplessly. He seemed to be in a good mood. She sat up shyly. Are you this happy because you're not eating the Empress Dowager's food this morning? Just then, a maid entered and Liliana was surprised. The maid hesitantly reported, The Empress Dowager personally sent this. But Helio Carlo immediately interrupted. Enough. He stood up uncomfortably. Now she's even sending it here personally. Liliana wondered, does he really hate eating these things this much? Looking at the plate of delicately and carefully prepared soup in front of her, she couldn't help but sigh. It really looks delicious. But then Liliana felt a murderous aura behind her and turned around. Helio Carlo could only say, You eat it. Liliana was surprised. Huh. She quickly declined. I'm fine. I don't usually eat breakfast, and such a good dish is too wasteful to eat in the morning. The more she spoke, the more uncomfortable he became. You eat it. He turned around, forcing a smile. Whatever it is, just eat it, and then tell that old woman you ate it. Tell her I didn't touch a single bite. Liliana was covered in sweat, her face blank. Helio Carlo immediately instructed, from now on, whatever she sends, give it directly to you. Remember to tell her that too. She forced a smile, thinking worriedly, how did I get dragged into their war? In the palace in the early morning, Helio Carlo was concentrating on reviewing documents. Suddenly, he smiled slightly and turned his head, looking surprised. I've served him for so long, and this is the first time I've seen him like this. Unexpectedly, Helio Carlo frowned and asked uncomfortably, What are you looking at? The other person quickly looked away. Nothing. He asked again. It seems like something good happened. Helio Carlo replied coldly. You say something good. He answered blankly. Now I understand why people keep pets. Suddenly, Helio Carlo had an idea. The Emerald Palace seems a bit far. Moving somewhere else wouldn't be bad. The other person said blankly, yes. He looked at him uncomfortably. Didn't you hear me? I think it would be better to move the Empress's chambers. The other person could only helplessly agree. Ah, yes. What did you say that? As the other person was writing, Helio Carlo was still pondering. Should I move her to Alice Palace, which is close to the Empress's chambers? Maybe the young lady who will become Empress in the future can cultivate feelings there. Suddenly, he frowned uncomfortably again, remembering, right, I forgot about Miss Gabriel. The other person looked at him in confusion. But then Helio Carlo waved his hand and declared decisively, I've decided. Let her stay in the Emerald Palace. He asserted confidently, wouldn't such a small woman get lost living in such a large place? Turns listlessly complied, "Yes, your majesty." His discerning eyes realized that his majesty seemed to find Empress Liliana more endearing than anticipated. Even though there was a distance between them, in reality, this distance might be just right for them. Suddenly, a knock came at the door. "Enter." The butler walked in. "Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager has arrived." Hearing this, Helio Carlo immediately became uncomfortable. Turns anxiously suggested, "Should we send the Empress Dowager back?" But this time, Helio changed his mind. "No, let her in. I'd like to see what wind blew her here today." The butler sighed and immediately replied, "Yes, your Majesty." Helio Carlo sat quietly and waited, his eyes filled with distaste. The Empress Dowager calmly sipped her tea. "What happened?" she said with a smile. "I haven't done anything yet, your Majesty." He responded coldly, "Weren't you here to see me?" Helio Carlo immediately retorted sarcastically, "Didn't you say you would be indifferent to me for the rest of your life?" The Empress Dowager simply sighed and changed the subject. "Does tea taste good?" He frowned angrily. "Mother." Only then did she say, "I'm sorry." Helio Carlo looked at her in surprise, asking again in disbelief, "What did you say?" The Empress Dowager expressed sadly, "I sincerely apologize to you." But Helio Carlo immediately sneered sarcastically and responded coldly, "Even so, you cannot return to your homeland." She gently set down her teacup. "I'm not here to make a deal. I'm here to apologize." Then, she opened her heart softly. "I made a grave mistake against your Majesty and tried to cover it up with simple thoughts. From now on, I will do better. And that in itself is a sin." Helio Carlo remained silent, sitting across from the Empress Dowager. Then he asked, "Who made you do this?" She simply smiled and said, "You've noticed the change, haven't you? I thought I would accompany you for the rest of your life with my usual personality, but you've started acting strangely lately. Someone must have instructed you. Who could it be?" Helio Carlo immediately reflected, "Empress Liliana." The Empress Dowager then recalled, "She came to see me today." Liliana had personally come to her palace and bowed her head apologetically. "I came to apologize to the Empress Dowager." The Empress Dowager smiled and said, "Did you eat it on purpose? His Majesty must have given it to you." Liliana still explained, "But I felt I should still apologize because of me." She hesitated. "I understand, your Majesty, Empress Dowager. If I may be so bold, what is your reason for wanting to improve your relationship with His Majesty?" She replied, "It's because of the Empress." Liliana was surprised to hear this. "Me? What do you mean?" The Empress Dowager explained cheerfully, "Please sit. Seeing His Majesty teasing you, I realized that I didn't really understand my own son." Liliana immediately sat down and listened attentively. "I also understand one thing. If I cannot return to my homeland." She stared at her teacup and forced a smile. "Then I have no reason to hate that child." Then they both fell silent. Neither of them said anything. Liliana hesitated and said, "Please forgive me if I've overstepped. In my opinion." The Empress Dowager listened intently. Clearly, it was too late to mend this relationship. A trace of sadness appeared on her face, but Liliana gave her an idea and urged, "But you can still apologize." The Empress Dowager was startled by these words and looked at her. Liliana continued, "Of course, whether or not he accepts, it is His Majesty's decision, but you still have to do it." She gradually understood Liliana's words. "It wasn't for peace of mind, but because you believe it's what you should do." Liliana sincerely comforted her. "There's no one else, Empress Dowager. You must apologize for the past." The Empress Dowager told him everything. Then both mother and son fell silent. Helio Carlo still sneered coldly. "It's laughable to think that an apology can change everything." She looked at him anxiously. "Who knows if you had played the role of a mother properly back then?" At this moment, the Empress Dowager chuckled softly. "Perhaps you would have been able to set foot in your homeland, the one you cherish even more than your son." I'm not saying this to comfort myself, but she felt the burden on her heart lighten slightly. Unfortunately, at this moment, she stood up. "That child still doesn't intend to accept my apology after all." Just then, Helio Carlo suddenly said, "Wait a moment." Unexpectedly, he said to her, "In that case, Mother, please attend the National Day celebrations." The Empress Dowager quickly turned. "What did you just say?" He calmly repeated, "I'm inviting you to the National Day celebrations this year. Don't you avoid it every year." As he finished speaking, a carriage hurried past. It was the Empress Dowager sitting in the carriage. "Mother," she reminisced silently. "Mother, I found this in the garden. It's a canary." A young Helio Carlo excitedly ran to her to show off his find. "I brought it because I thought you'd like it." The Empress Dowager at the time had simply turned away. She raised her hand. making a wish. Back then, the Empress Dowager reached out to touch the small bird. If only I had responded to him even once. Mother and son gazed at each other with deep emotion. Could they have reconciled much sooner? She recalled the invitation. Please attend the National Day celebrations. Now, the Empress Dowager was consumed by guilt. If only I had understood sooner. Unable to bear it any longer, she finally burst into tears. He had been waiting for this apology all along. Maybe I can still make amends. Liliana had advised her, apologize. You might still have time. The Empress Dowager wept sorrowfully. The carriage continued on its way. In the days that followed, within the palace, after the storm had passed, Helio Carlo began to accept the food sent by the Empress Dowager. It was said he didn't offer thanks, but at least he no longer threw it away. Liliana woke up, stretched, and felt cheerful. The best part, she thought happily, was that Helio Carlo's sudden intrusions, announcing his intention to spend the night, had stopped. I'm staying here. Tonight, incidents were no more. She walked to the window, lost in thought. I was a little nervous at first, but I'm glad I intervened. She basked in the morning light and her happiness. If I hadn't done anything, I'd be feeling much worse now. In the original story, they only reconciled after the birth of their child, but now the possibility of a child seemed remote. Just then, a maid entered. Your Majesty, she reported, the Empress Dowager has sent a dress for you to wear to the National Day celebrations. Liliana was surprised. A dress? The maid calmly asked, may I bring it in now? Liliana could only nod awkwardly. It was a magnificent purple gown. Trembling, she said in disbelief, see, can I really wear this? Just looking at it, she could tell it was incredibly valuable. Confused and hesitant, Liliana said to the maid, I've never worn anything so extravagant. If I said it was too precious and wanted to return it. The maid shook her head vigorously in alarm. The Empress Dowager will be very disappointed. There's also a letter. She picked up the letter and read it. It said, this is the dress I wore for my debut in high society. I hope you will wear it to the National Day celebrations this year. It is more than just a dress. It carries my heartfelt sentiments. The pressure instantly increased 100-fold. Liliana thought dejectedly, now that I've read the letter, I really can't return it. Suddenly, Sophia called out, Your Majesty. She ran in, beaming like a child, and exclaimed, look, this really matches your hair. Sophia must be happy that I'm getting along with the Empress Dowager. Innocent and excited, Sophia asked, should we pair it with sapphire earrings? Liliana forced a smile. That won't do. The maid immediately interjected, what's wrong? We can't wear clothes or accessories the same color as His Majesty's eyes to the National Day celebrations. Liliana quickly reassured Sophia. It's an unwritten rule of the Empire. Don't worry, Sophia. I actually prefer this one, yes. They happily chose accessories together. These earrings really suit the dress. You look so magnificent, Your Majesty. Then I'll wear these to the National Day celebrations. The day of the National Day celebrations arrived. The palace was decorated in utmost luxury, and the guests had all arrived. Gabriel appeared, radiating confidence. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Look, Miss Gabriel over there is as beautiful and noble as ever. Truly worthy of the Gabriel family. His Majesty will surely dance the first dance with her. The noble ladies behind her couldn't help but whisper amongst themselves. But isn't Her Majesty the Empress also here this time? The Empress is a foreign princess. She won't dance the first dance with His Majesty. That's right, Miss Gabriel. Meanwhile, Liliana kept thinking, I became Empress in a single day. Perhaps everyone thinks this way. Just then, a maid came to announce something. This is fine. I don't want to attract attention. His Majesty has arrived. I'll just stay quiet, slip out later, and avoid any trouble. Steady footsteps approached. Helio Carlo entered majestically, his appearance as charming and elegant as ever. Helio Carlo raised his glass. Thank you all for taking the time to celebrate National Day with us. He raised his glass high in a toast to everyone. The royal family will not forget your loyalty. Liliana was hiding amongst the crowd, calculating her escape. Helio Carlo's first dance was about to begin, and this was her chance to slip away. Helio Carlo slowly descended the stairs. Gabriel, her cheeks flushed, smiled, and walked towards him, starting to speak you. But unexpectedly, Helio Carlo walked straight past Gabriel. Why are you hiding in a corner? Helio Carlo extended his hand. Come here. Liliana stared at him in shock. unable to believe he would do this. Empress Liliana. Gabriel turned back angrily as Helio Carlo unhesitatingly extended his hand in invitation. Liliana thought in confusion, what? Why is he coming to me? Turning, she gasped in surprise, while the Empress Dowager beamed. What does this mean? Liliana took his hand, her heart pounding with apprehension. Miss Gabriel. Helio Carlo then bowed and kissed her hand. Empress Liliana, he said, gazing at her intently, may I have this first dance with you? Liliana nodded her acceptance. It would be my honor to dance with your majesty. How could I refuse? They joined hands and began to dance in the center of the hall. Helio Carlo asked her curiously, why are you so nervous? Liliana quickly replied, after all, this is my first time dancing the first dance in front of everyone, and with the great emperor, no less. Of course you're nervous. He teased her, you have a way with words. It suits you as the future emperor's mother. Eloquence is a good trait. Liliana's face paled, feeling extremely uncomfortable. Is this guy crazy? She thought. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, saying such a thing in public. Heavens, did you hear that? It's clearly an announcement that our child will inherit the throne. She stared at him. This guy, he really had the power to make this a reality. Liliana had been thinking. He used political maneuvering, requesting the right of succession from the kingdom of Miata. It's public knowledge, but I never thought he actually wanted a child to inherit the throne. As the music ended and they bowed, she felt a mixture of annoyance and unease. What is he thinking? Liliana hurried away, as others quickly surrounded Helio Carlo. Your Majesty, Empress Liliana. She thought, I need to get out of here. As for Gabriel, she glared at them furiously. Miss Gabriel. Her resentful gaze fixed on Liliana, radiating anger. Of course, I danced with Helio before her. When she appeared, she exuded an air of coldness and arrogance. Miss Gabriel. The whispers continued. She looks furious. Of course, I danced with Helio before her. Liliana thought, but I don't intend to compete with her. She offered a smile. It's been a while, Miss Gabriel, she said, politely adding, you've become even more beautiful. See, I can be polite too. Gabriel sneered, replying haughtily, Your Majesty, do you find me disagreeable? Liliana looked at her in surprise, her expression blank. Not at all. I'm happy to see you again. Then why? Gabriel smiled wickedly, as if mocking her, and said coldly, covering your face with a fan while speaking can be misunderstood. Her eyes were full of malice. Or perhaps you find it difficult to be approachable. Liliana felt a sense of unease. This person was not easy to deal with. She touched her face with her fan, appearing to look down at her regally. In some countries, covering your face with a fan while speaking is considered impolite. She continued in a condescending tone, because it shows a lack of confidence. Liliana thought, quickly realizing, I haven't fully grasped all the etiquette of the empire yet. She leaned closer. Perhaps you feel awkward seeing me. Gabriel brought her face close, sneering. After all, you took a position that doesn't belong to you. Liliana started to sweat, a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. The surrounding whispers made her uneasy. When did everyone gather around? Calm down. Everyone is gathered, but no one has reacted to Miss Gabriel's words yet. On one side was Gabriel, her scheming face standing amongst the girls who aspired to be Empress. On the other, Liliana and Helio Carlo, along with the girl currently most favored by the Emperor. They stood in the light, the subject of everyone's whispers. Everyone was thinking about which side to take. Liliana's fan slipped from her hand, as if she had just remembered something. With that, she put on a surprised expression, her eyes softening, even glistening with tears. Miss Gabriel, She feigned helplessness. Are you blaming me again? Gabriel, misunderstanding, began to panic. Blaming. Last time you corrected my mistake. So, I was wondering, what did I do wrong this time? Liliana took her hand, as if pleading for forgiveness. You look so angry. What did I do wrong? Gabriel shouted angrily. Empress Liliana, how dare you? Liliana continued her act, as the whispers outside intensified. Just think, I heard Miss Gabriel even slapped Empress Liliana recently. A triumphant expression played on her face as she maintained the gentle facade of the fragile Empress Liliana. This is enough, she thought. If this kind of behavior is seen as insecure and embarrassing in the Carlo Empire, then I'll use it to my advantage. Just as Empress Liliana was about to leave, the Empress Dowager appeared before them, her presence commanding respect. Empress Dowager. The maids curtsied. Long live the Empress Dowager. She addressed Liliana. Are you resting after your first dance? Liliana bowed respectfully. Yes, your majesty. Just taking a short break. The Empress Dowager spoke gently. I think it would be nice for you to spend some time with the other noble ladies. Ah, that's a wonderful idea. Turning to Miss Gabriel, she said, This is Miss Gabriel. It's been a while, hasn't it? Miss Gabriel dipped into a curtsy. Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager continued, gesturing politely. I hear you've been instructing Empress Liliana. Is that right? Miss Gabriel quickly replied. Her Majesty seems unfamiliar with the customs here, so I've been offering some guidance. The Empress Dowager nodded. I see. She pressed further. And what exactly were you teaching her when you slapped Empress Liliana the other day? Miss Gabriel was rendered speechless. The Empress Dowager's words were sharp, draining the color from Miss Gabriel's face. Instructing the Empress on court etiquette is something you can do only after she holds a higher official title than you. It was a clear warning. A realization dawned on her. When the incident happened, although the Empress Dowager didn't participate in political affairs, she was still the elder of the royal family. Miss Gabriel had always been respectful to her, effectively under the Empress Dowager's protection. But now, that protection was gone. The Empress Dowager's clear support for her meant that if Miss Gabriel wanted to challenge her, she would have to challenge the Empress Dowager first. Miss Gabriel spoke hesitantly, Your Majesty. Liliana feignait surprise. Miss Gabriel put on a friendly air, as if urging her to clarify everything. There seemed to be a lot of rumors. Perhaps Your Majesty would like to clear them up. You're about to be under my thumb, and you still want to keep up appearances. Liliana smiled brightly, a sense of foreboding rising within her. Ah, this is going to fall back on me again. She was taken aback by Miss Gabriel's move and the Empress Dowager's intervention. She was caught between a rock and a hard place. She didn't know what to do. To claim it was a misunderstanding would undermine the Empress Dowager's authority. Two threats at once, Liliana thought. But if this continues, the consequences will be severe. Just then, a voice interrupted. Excuse me. With arms crossed, he bowed respectfully. My master requests an audience with Empress Liliana. Feigning indignation, she asked, Who dares to summon the Empress in such a manner? He replied, Marquis William, Your Majesty. A flicker of fear ran through her. Marquis William. Did he just say Marquis William? He has urgent matters to discuss regarding the Miata Kingdom's magic stone. She recalled what she knew. In the original story, Marquis William was a significant character, a comet streaking across the Empire's sky. And Helio himself bestowed the title of Marquis upon him. She continued to ponder. There were many rumors about him, but ultimately, no one knew what he had done before his rise to prominence. One beautiful scene from the original story came to mind. He had been a war slave, but Helio recognized his talent and brought him into high society. Someday, he would become a crucial ally to her daughter and his son, one of the male leads. Why would such a person seek me out? She wondered. The Empress Dowager added, Marquis William was quite the hero in the recent conflict. She urged Liliana with a cheerful tone, Go and see him. I'm sure it's important. Don't delay. Suddenly, a voice stopped her. Wait, she curtsied. Yes, Empress Dowager. Then I'll excuse myself. This was a perfect opportunity to slip away. The Empress Dowager granted her leave. Have a good chat. He walked beside her. I'll escort you. Then let's go quickly. I don't know what he looks like, but thank you, Marquis William, she thought, relief flooding her. Yet, her face remained a mask of anger. The scene shifted to a fountain. Hesitantly, she began, He took her hand, asking politely, Are you Marquis William? Why did that man bring me to such a secluded place? She was too stunned to speak. He smiled faintly. It was His Majesty. He gently touched his lips, signaling her to be quiet. Your Majesty. He smiled faintly. Quiet. He told her a plan, because from now on, we're running away. Astonishment filled her eyes, completely bewildered. We're running away. What about Marquis William? He crossed his arms, pouting. Do you still want to see that guy? She quickly explained, no, it's not like that. She changed the subject. More importantly, Your Majesty, why are you here? He replied, the banquet was boring. She asked doubtfully, then why did you call me out here? He handed her a cloak. To play. Put this on. She didn't seem to like the cloak. Why would I wear this to play? No. Seeing her bewildered expression, he explained further, didn't I say I was going to run away with you? He gently placed a hat on her head. We're going outside. It's much more interesting outside the palace than the National Day celebrations. A gentle smile spread across her face. He felt his pride stung. Are you laughing at me? I saved you from that, miss. And you're not even grateful, are you? Ignoring his tone, she simply asked in confusion, how did you know I was with her? He patiently explained. After the first dance, you left, and she followed you. She raised her innocent eyes and asked, so you helped me on purpose? He grinned mischievously. I don't want to answer. It's a secret. In the carriage, she couldn't help but ask, why did you do that earlier? He didn't understand what she meant. What are you talking about? She said, in front of everyone, you mentioned becoming king. She pouted. If you think I want to have children just because you said that, you're wrong. He answered seriously, I do need a child. He looked at her. But the reason I announced today that the child would be king was to protect you and the child. He speculated. From your perspective, my actions might resemble the late emperor's. She clenched her fists when she heard this. I brought you to this unfamiliar place. Fear laced her voice. You and the late emperor both dabble in politics, but you're different. She was sweating slightly. I should say, you're really different. She considered her boundaries with this man again. But what right do I have? How much do I really know about this person? She spoke more cautiously. If I say the wrong thing, I might hurt him. She made a suggestion. If you're uncomfortable with it, then change it to twice. He asked, change what? She calmly repeated what he had said to her. You promised to protect me once when Miss Gabriel and I argued, right? Then protect me twice. Don't make me endure it. He asked, what are you planning to do to her? She pouted again and explained, I'm not trying to do anything. I just want to survive. He agreed cheerfully. All right. Her eyes sparkled like diamonds. Really? Thank you. He smiled, resting his chin on his hand. You want to live more than I thought. She smoothed her hair lightly and smiled faintly. Yes, I like being alive. Why? Life isn't easy for you, is it? Even if life isn't easy, good things still happen. Your Majesty. He wanted her to be more specific, such as, outside, fireworks bloomed in the sky. She opened the door to admire them. He cautioned worriedly, Your Majesty, be careful. Wow. He was captivated by her innocence. Your Majesty, look. Her smile bloomed like a flower as she looked at him. It's so beautiful. He was speechless for a moment. He took her hand, worry etched on his face, while she remained carefree. It's dangerous. She urged, look. I told you, right? Her eyes were bright as the sun. Even if life isn't easy, good things still happen. He was amazed by this girl. Fireworks lit up the night sky, the castle a silhouette below. He asked curiously, is this your first time seeing fireworks? She replied excitedly, no, I've seen them before. He was surprised by her optimism. You're still this happy. She simply smiled, because there are some truths you can't understand. It was a long time ago in my past life. Her smile suddenly vanished. She couldn't remember how she came back to life. Come to think of it, how did I die in my past life? When did I see fireworks? But she said with certainty, I'm sure this isn't my first time seeing fireworks, but it wasn't in a market like this. She was alone, admiring the fireworks in a dark room. But from somewhere farther away, higher up, a voice called out, Your Majesty. Helio placed his hand on her shoulder, his face full of concern. What's wrong? She quickly replied, nothing. She changed the subject again. What are we doing next? Should we find something to eat? He agreed. Yes, filling our stomachs is most important. He led her away. She was puzzled because they were walking so fast. Why are we walking so fast? He was just worried about losing sight of her. If I lose you in the crowd, will I be able to bring you back to the palace? It's because you're so small, so you have to stick close to me. A distinctive-looking skewer appeared. She said to him hesitantly, I'm shocked. Why? So many things. She ate. While looking at him, she addressed him first, Your Majesty. He seemed a little uncomfortable. You always call me Your Majesty, Your Majesty. Why not use my name? She said playfully, Oh, how dare I? He cleverly replied, What if someone faints after hearing you call me Your Majesty? Will you take them home? She pouted and suggested a different form of address. How about Master? He said helplessly, TSK. Well, you're not wrong. She winked at him, her voice sweet. Yes, Master. You even like this kind of street food. He complained, I've eaten worse on the battlefield. This is good enough. She asked curiously, Where did you get the commoner's money? He retorted, Do you expect me to bring gold coins to the market? I need to at least prepare this much. The coins, carefully wrapped in a handkerchief, were handed to her. He explained gently, Don't be nervous. Don't overthink it. This level of performance is normal for a father who will raise children in the future. He looked at her, smiling as if teasing her. Here, say it's from your master. Go show it off. She looked, surprised, letting out a small oh, and began to recall the morning's events, still pondering them carefully. I'm grateful, but I don't want anything like today to happen again. He looked away. I see something interesting over there. Before she could understand what was happening, there's an archery stall over there. Feels like a lot of pressure. Does Master like it? He replied indifferently. Not really. It's too flashy. She gave a strained smile. That's true. The stall owner shouted, Anyone else want a challenge? She called out, Wait, if that's the case. Then she raised her hand and looked at the owner. Here. Oh, does this young lady want a challenge? She explained, not me. She pointed at him happily, and he looked at her with a blank expression. It's him. His facial muscles relaxed, and he looked at her with a questioning gaze. The owner shouted excitedly, that tall, handsome young man over there, please come over here. What? He gently pinched her cheek, threatening, just you wait. You'll see what happens later. The owner announced, a very handsome contestant has entered the stage, full of spirit. He quietly picked up a bow and arrow. How many points can he get? His face was full of confidence as he prepared to draw the bow. The crowd murmured, what number is this now? Two girls looked at him admiringly. He hasn't missed a single shot. Her expression was as if she had already foreseen the outcome. Sure enough, she noticed a characteristic about him and felt admiration. His majesty is truly different. He always stands out in a crowd. He doesn't feel any pressure in situations like this. The crowd jostled, and she almost fell. Let's get a closer look. She was pushed further back. Oh no, I'm going to be squeezed out. She looked towards him. I'm going to fall at this rate, master. He grabbed her hand and called her name, Lily. A look of gratitude appeared on her face. He smoothly pulled her into his arms, and she looked at him blankly. He called her back to her senses. Lily, he spoke in a tone as if instructing her. Stand in front. I told you, you're small, and I'm worried you'll get lost. She obediently agreed like a kitten. She felt that something was strange. She thought about the man in front of her. I know he's interested in me. As the emperor, there aren't many people he can speak freely with. Like me. She recalled his words, puzzled. But you're small, so stay close to me, stand in front. I told you you're small, and I'm worried you'll get lost. Is it really necessary to protect me to this extent? She thought back to the past. Could I have said such things? Because you're going to be the mother of the king. You need to know how to speak like this, because I have to give birth to the king of Miata, because I'm an important political pawn. She continued to wonder, then why did he bring me to such a dangerous place? When she saw him smile, her eyes widened. She felt she couldn't understand this person. I really don't understand him. He asked her gently, are you sure you're all right? She recalled what he had just said, puzzled. Just now, you returned the first place prize jewelry to the vendor. She explained, and then you hit 20 targets, making things even bigger. The owner pleaded tearfully, sir, I'm so sorry. We've already given out all the first place prizes. To actually hit so many. Being considerate, she decided to take a bracelet. How much gold can a street vendor have? Forget the first prize. Can I take this instead? The owner looked at her gratefully. Mississippi, she said to him, I'm fine. Isn't it better to have a souvenir? He turned his face and spoke of his intentions. I was originally planning to give it to you. Having already received many gifts, she asked doubtfully, you've already given me so much. Why give me more? Always attentive to her, he said, it seems like this is your first time out like this. She replied yes. But in her heart, she thought, though he noticed her hesitation, she declared firmly, I like this one. His expression soured. It's fake. She pouted. I can tell. At least he asked. He spoke as if gently chiding her. I've sent you piles of jewelry to Emerald Palace. Have you even looked at them properly? She cradled the bracelet like a treasure. No, this is different. She looked down at the bracelet with loving eyes. He truly couldn't understand this girl's thinking. What was so different? The first place prize was genuine jewelry. Why was she so happy with a fake bracelet? She opened up to him. Aside from my mother, I've never received something like this from anyone else. She gave him a sweet smile. It's not a royal reward or something given due to my status. He was surprised, his eyes widening at her answer. He recalled her expression from earlier. That's the expression I saw just now. He adored her smile, so he feigned discomfort. Don't smile like that. She looked at him blankly. How should I smile? She rested her chin on her hand, gazing into the distance. Does it look silly? Sometimes Purcell says I look silly when I smile. He denied it. No, he suddenly complimented her. Your smile is too beautiful. There's no need. She was stunned. Who's Purcell? Her face flushed crimson at his words. It's nothing, she exclaimed. He asked what? She shyly turned her face away. Nothing. She lowered her head, too embarrassed to look at him. He looked at her and smiled gently. The scene showed the carriage arriving at the back gate of the Imperial Palace. He looked at her, noticing something, then thought to himself, I finally managed to doze off. She woke up suddenly. He looked at her sleepy face. We still have a little further to go before we reach Emerald Palace. Rest a while longer. She mumbled drowsily, the Empress Dowager helped me today. He replied, I heard. She sleepily added, she's so noble. She wouldn't care about someone like me. Then she leaned against him completely. He smiled. He thought about the Empress Dowager, and for the first time, she felt like a mother. The scene shifted to Emerald Palace the next morning. Sunlight filled the room. A loud bang echoed. Bang, kaya. She hugged herself in alarm. Helio Carlo was lying in her bed. What's going on? Flustered and mortified, she clutched the blanket. How did this guy end up sleeping here? She saw his body. At least he should be covered with a blanket. She was stunned by the sight before her. His well-built physique was on full display. She screamed, Kale. She continued to stare at him, shouting, "It's this guy's clothes." Her face was burning red with embarrassment. Why isn't he wearing any clothes? She sank to the floor. He reached out to steady her. You're going to fall. Their eyes met. Careful. He wrapped his arms around her waist, and she fell against him. He smiled. Holding her breath, she thought to herself, doing this sort of thing so early in the morning. She demanded, "Why are you here?" He teased, "Too close." "What should I do?" She wriggled, trying to escape his embrace. "You should have gone back to the Imperial Palace." "Let me go," he calmly replied, "and leave you sleeping in the carriage." As he spoke, she looked at him. "I couldn't just drop you off at Emerald Palace and leave." Releasing his hold, he explained, "I told you, I'm protecting you in my own way." She sat and pondered. If rumors spread about His Majesty frequenting Emerald Palace, everyone will think he's grown cold towards me. Then countless people, including Miss Gabriel, will look down on me. He lay there, looking at her. "I'll call a maid. Get dressed quickly." "You expect a maid to dress the Emperor. The Empress is right here." She puffed out her cheeks. "That's how it is in my country." He calmly replied, "But it's not like that in the Empire. It seems I really do need to find someone to instruct you." She sat down and turned away. "I agree. I was almost ignored by Miss Gabriel yesterday." He brushed off her comment and changed the subject. "How was the National Day celebration?" She spoke while getting dressed. "It was good, especially the latter half." Holding her clothes, she reminisced excitedly, although the first half was boring. He chuckled. "Of course it was boring. You didn't do anything." His words finally registered with her. "What do you mean?" She complained. "I was stared at by everyone when I danced the first dance with you, and I was ignored by Miss Gabriel." He continued in the same tone. "You didn't do anything. All the preparations for the celebration were handled by my sister, Princess Lucia." She realized he wasn't just talking about the day of the celebration. She complained to him, "But isn't that the current Empress's responsibility? Not the Empress in name only." He looked at her and gently explained, "Princess Lucia is only stepping in because the Empress's position is currently vacant. This time, please try it." She looked at him in surprise, pondering his words and intentions. "The Empress Dowager's birthday is approaching, so I want you to prepare for it." She tried to excuse herself. "I told you, that's the current Empress's duty." He replied bluntly, "I don't have a current Empress." His words sounded like an acknowledgement of her. "You are my only wife." She froze. "Wife?" Her face flushed red. Closing her eyes, she murmured, "How embarrassing. If you were engaged to Miss Gabriel, you could entrust this matter to her." He expressed his feelings to her. "I don't want to." In the sunlight, his handsome features were fully displayed. She was captivated by him. He gently stroked her head, his voice soft. "What's with that expression?" Unsure how to respond, she lowered her head like a kitten, saying in confusion, "Well, what if I start spreading rumors because of what you just said?" He looked at her, smiling reassuringly. "Would someone like you spread rumors?" He sat in his chair, seemingly contemplating something difficult to say. She also guessed that he seemed to be pondering something. She finally sat down, making a decision before he could suggest it. "All right, since the Empress Dowager has been so kind to me, I will prepare the banquet." He turned and asked, "Why are you sighing?" She opened up. "I can already imagine how much Miss Gabriel will hate me." She began to fantasize. Perhaps she'll think that sly fox is clinging to His Majesty, delaying her engagement. He laughed, and she looked at him in confusion. She couldn't help but speak. She asked hesitantly, "You seem to have something on your mind. Should I listen?" He responded with a puzzled question. "My worries." "The Emperor's worries are the Empress's concern." She gently explained to him, helping him understand, "I have no ambition for power, and I have no one to talk to. Who would be more suitable than me? Besides, even if I listen, I can't do anything about it." She smiled sweetly again, tapping her finger on her lips. "Because you're so kind to me, I'll be the keeper of your secrets." Upon hearing these words, his face flushed red. He lowered his head and chuckled softly. He explained her family's standing within the empire. The third head of the House of Gabriel made great contributions in the war and was granted the title of Duke for his service. Since then, their family has been loyal to the Empire, and the Empire has also greatly respected House Gabriel, maintaining a good relationship. She understood the issue, so they're a young, noble family. He continued speaking about the Duke. "That's right. The third Duke's achievements were remarkable. He once saved the Empire from crisis." His tone was firm yet laced with disdain as he spoke. But the current Duke of Gabriel is so incompetent that it's hard to believe he's a descendant of that great man. His daughter, Vesti Gabriel, is not worthy of becoming this empire's empress. She recalled Gabriel's words, sighing in the presence of the future empress. You must be mad. She touched her face with a melancholic expression, remembering what she had experienced. She recalled her expression. She was arrogant and always jealous. In her heart, her favorable impression gradually faded, noting how she lacked even basic etiquette when mocking a foreign princess. The idea of her becoming a wise empress was truly... She lowered her head, her heart troubled. Tout impossible. He looked at her, teasing, if she becomes empress, it won't be easy for you either. She only thought to herself, of course not, because in the end, I died because of House Gabriel. That's not an exaggeration at all. He approached her and touched her hair, then closed his eyes. She suddenly asked, what are you doing? He touched her cheek, and she cried out, flailing her hands. What are you doing? He said again, you're a princess of the kingdom of Miata. Aren't you embarrassed? She touched her face, asking in confusion, what do you mean? He cut her off, offering no further explanation. Never mind if you don't understand. Chat time is over. He put on his coat and left. I'm going to the study. You go to the Empress Dowager's palace and tell her you'll prepare the birthday banquet. She'll help you. She wondered, how did his coat get there? She ran after him, asking, wait, didn't you say it's royal tradition for me to dress you? She tried to persuade him to stay a while longer. Then you should wait for me. That's my job. He immediately stroked her head, interrupting her words. Why is it always you? He joked with a smile. That's why I say it's such a waste that you're a princess of Miata. He twisted her hair, and she watched his carriage depart. She was still caught in a whirlwind of questions. What does that even mean? Amidst the beautiful palace scenery, a voice rang out, Your Majesty, please forgive me. The maid explained that the Empress Dowager was meeting another guest, so she stood outside and replied, I understand. She hadn't expected the Empress Dowager to be meeting someone else. She crossed her arms and thought, Helio told me to see her, but the Empress Dowager's birthday is coming up soon. He want me to prepare, but it doesn't necessarily have to be right now. She then said to the maid, then please tell the Empress Dowager I'll come back later. Just then, someone came out, no, you can see the Empress Dowager now. She recognized the voice instantly. Although they had never met, she knew who this unfamiliar voice belonged to. It was Princess Lucia Carlo. She thought, Helio's half-sister, Princess Lucia Carlo. She bowed respectfully. It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Highness, Princess Lucia. The princess had a commanding presence and an air of elegance. It's my first time meeting you as well, but I knew who you were from afar, Empress Liliana. Liliana silently compared the two sisters. Apart from their different eye colors, they were almost identical. Anyone could tell they were the same bloodline. I'm not happy with my brother's decision to entrust the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet to a foreign princess. I wonder what His Majesty is thinking. It would have been enough to just have me do it. She didn't know how to respond to the princess's bluntness. Is she talking about me behind my back, or is she saying this to my face? Is this small talk, or am I supposed to respond? She thought to herself, but didn't feel upset because she had read about this woman in the original story. Princess Lucia has a proud and aloof personality. She knew Lucia very well, but after becoming captivated by the baby in the story, Lucia became a doting aunt, willing to do anything for her nephew. She remembered the scene in the original story where Lucia held the child tightly. Later, she was the first to tell the child, I love you, something not even the child's father, Helio, had said. Lucia looked at her with a puzzled smile. The scene was truly touching. She pretended to be uncomfortable and excused herself. Why is she looking at me like that? I'll be going then. Don't expect me to help you. She hurriedly called out, wait. She stood frozen as the princess walked away, too late to even say goodbye. She complained to the maid with a dejected look, Sophie, did I smile foolishly again? No, Your Majesty, your smile is beautiful. Sophie comforted her. It seems the princess is in a bad mood. Your Majesty, let's go see the Empress Dowager. She thought again, I feel like she's angry because of me. Her voice rang out, greetings, Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager held a teacup and smiled. Come in, I've been waiting for you. She bowed respectfully. Thank you for taking care of me last night. The Empress Dowager replied pleasantly, it's nothing. Adjusting the palace rules is necessary. The Empress Dowager kindly invited her to sit. Come, sit down. I can't have you standing all the time. She rejoiced inwardly. Thank you. She's much kinder to me than before. The Empress Dowager asked her, I heard you're preparing for the birthday banquet. She replied, yes, His Majesty has given me this honor, and I'm truly at a loss. The Empress Dowager explained the reason for summoning Lucia. Actually, I asked Princess Lucia to come here for this very matter. Empress, you came here through marriage and are not yet familiar with our country's customs. She forced another smile. The Empress Dowager said, so I asked Princess Lucia to help you. You don't have to worry too much. She realized her judgment was correct. Oh no, she really is angry because of me. She began to worry about this. That attitude suggests she won't help me easily. I don't know what to do. What should I do? I feel like I've already failed before even starting. The Empress Dowager asked her, Empress, are you feeling unwell? You don't look well. I'm a little worried. She had to explain, no, Empress Dowager, you've taken such good care of me. I'm perfectly fine. The Empress Dowager tilted her head and touched her face, looking at her with concern. Actually, you looked a little tired when you first entered the living room. Is something the matter? Or has His Majesty been cold to you? She quickly waved her hands in denial. No, His Majesty is very good to me. The Empress Dowager said with interest, no wonder you two sneaked out yesterday. She blushed at being discovered, thinking I just wanted to go out and have fun, but to others, it looked like a date. It wasn't like that at all. The Empress Dowager understood her feelings and offered, if you encounter any difficulties, I will help you. Is there anything you want to say? But she still firmly refused. There's really nothing important. She lowered her head, a hint of sadness in her expression. I understand her inability to resist softening her heart and confiding in the Empress Dowager. Actually, I think Princess Lucia doesn't seem to like me very much. If I were to ask for her help, I think she would find it very difficult. At the same time, she was afraid of being misunderstood. So she quickly explained, I'm not speaking ill of the princess. If she doesn't like me, that's understandable. If she doesn't trust me, that's also perfectly normal. She slowly set down her teacup and said to her, Princess Lucia is His Majesty's half-sister. Do you know why she still remains in the palace? She replied that she didn't know. With immense pride, she spoke of her daughter. Princess Lucia has royal blood flowing through her veins. She isn't the kind of noble who arrogantly ignores her responsibilities. She truly cherishes her lineage and duty. She added, therefore, she's very adept at handling palace affairs, which is why His Majesty has always kept her by his side. His Majesty often relies on his relationship with his sister to seek assistance. She's also very sentimental and finds it difficult to refuse others' requests, so she's someone you can trust. Since you have her help, you must always remember this. She said these things to comfort her and to help her better understand Lucia, so she shouldn't worry. The princess would definitely help her. I understand. I immediately promised to go see the princess and ask for her help. Recalling her expression, I felt a little apprehensive, but I thought I might be an exception. She sat there, feeling downcast, yet filled with determination. Even so, I still want to try my best. Her heart was full of a sense of responsibility, and she would definitely go and ask for Lucia's help. Because this is my first major responsibility in the Empire, I need the princess's assistance. The maid said that when she went to the room, the princess said she was very busy and perhaps she should come back another day. She then asked, then could you ask her when would be a good time? She lowered her head and replied sincerely, I'm very sorry, Your Majesty, but it seems the princess isn't free anytime soon. The maid added, I'm truly sorry. She thought to herself, things have become even more difficult. Now I'm being blocked at the door. She covered her mouth with her hand, thinking pensively, she's not actually busy, she just doesn't want to see me. She consoled herself, remembering the original story. That child also had a hard time getting close to Lucia. She knew she was easily swayed, so she built high walls around herself. Her voice was filled with persistence. Then I'll wait until she comes out. She smiled brightly, acting as if everything was fine, patient and resolute. Although the princess is cold, she can't completely push me away. I'm the one who will keep pursuing her. The maid ran out, saying urgently, please wait. A moment later, a voice called out, Your Majesty, Her Highness the Princess invites you in. She was delighted with the outcome. She had succeeded. She was stunned by the magnificent sight before her. Wow. She immediately turned around and called out happily, Princess Lucia. She bowed and said some very appropriate words. Thank you for taking the time to see me despite your busy schedule. Lucia spoke bluntly. I'm not busy. I just didn't want to see you. Didn't you realize that? She stood there, still consoling herself. That voice was as cold as the winter wind. Calm down. I understand this person. She continued to respond in a soft whisper. I apologize, but I need to prepare the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. As you know, I still lack a lot of understanding. A look of discomfort crossed her face. That's why I came to ask for your help. She began to feel that her words were having an effect. As the rumors said, she was soft-hearted. She already had a hesitant expression. She said shyly to Lucia, well, actually, a few days ago, Miss Gabriel made fun of me for covering my face with a fan. She slammed her hand on the table. It was her. Her voice was full of anger. Just now, she had radiated extreme anger, as if burning with red flames. What did you say? She thought to herself. She'd already felt it when admiring the exterior of this building. This place was both luxurious and elegant. A voice asked her, this place really suits the princess. Why are you looking at it like that? She remembered what His Majesty had once said to her. This is the mark of the royal family. He told me to say it was a gift from him, to let everyone know I was favored. Princess Lucia, Carlo reproached Liliana. What have you been doing? Not even learning these things. Even if you're a foreign princess, you should at least learn some basic etiquette. Liliana quickly explained, panic in her voice. Yes, that's right. My sisters all learned these things, but I was just a princess who couldn't even remember the king's name. The maids who knew Miata, kingdom etiquette taught me, and I studied very diligently. Hearing this, Lucia thought to herself. She learned etiquette by observing the princesses. Lucia secretly speculated. Although it's a small country, the royal etiquette should still be quite complex, right? Then Lucia silently assessed. Doesn't this mean her perspective is limited? It seems she's somewhat complacent. Perhaps, despite her ordinary appearance, she's still a useful person. Finally, she sighed. I suppose this is why Helios likes her. Then, to Liliana, she said, first, please sit down. What I need to know are the things I don't already know. As soon as Lucia finished speaking, Liliana approached her, her voice full of joy. Thank you, Your Highness, she said with a bright smile. Watching Liliana's excitement, Lucia thought, she really does seem like a fool. Aloud, she said, first, according to royal etiquette, the birthday banquet must be held in the early morning. Lucia continued, but it must end before sunset. Liliana immediately replied, yes, Your Highness. The princess continued speaking as night gradually fell and the magnificent castle became surrounded by a brilliant starry sky. In the royal bedroom, Helios was leisurely reading a book under the warm light when a displeased expression suddenly appeared on his face. I've been feeling tired since a while ago, Helios complained. I'm lying in bed, but I can't fall asleep. It's driving me crazy. He turned to the servant standing beside him. Where is Empress Liliana? The servant respectfully replied, Her Majesty is at the Silver Deer Palace. The emperor was taken aback. Why would she go to the Silver Deer Palace at this hour? The servant continued, It seems Her Majesty went there because she is interested in preparing for the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. Helios closed his book. I understand, he said, thinking, since she said she would do her best, there's no reason to stop her. Helios thought to himself, the reason I entrusted this matter to the Empress in the first place was because she wanted to secure a position for herself in the palace. Then, he said to the servant, that's all. I'm going to sleep now. The servant took the book and respectfully replied, Yes, Your Majesty. After the servant left, the room became exceptionally quiet. Helios held his forehead with his hand, thinking, I always sleep well when the Empress is by my side. Then he thought self-deprecatingly, even so, since when have I been unable to sleep without that little woman by my side? This is just an excuse for my insomnia. Looking at the empty side of the bed, Helios thought, but honestly, Empress, if you were by my side right now, I think I would be able to sleep well. Helios stared at the empty bed for a long time. He smiled unconsciously and reached out, gently touching the pillow beside him. Helios remained in this position for a long time before finally whispering, Forget it, I don't want to sleep early today either. In the following days, all preparations were focused on the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet. There were so many things to take care of. Sitting across from Lucia, Liliana thought, it's a good thing Princess Lucia is helping. I'm so lucky. But she quickly became discouraged. There is still too much to do. Seeing this, Lucia said to Liliana, the National Day celebrations are even more difficult than this. What are you going to do? Liliana replied, what needs to be prepared for the National Day celebrations? That's the Empress's responsibility. The princess asked, you don't know. Liliana immediately answered, no. Lucia looked at Liliana, thinking she may not realize it herself, but she's doing better than I thought as Empress. Princess Lucia recalled the past incident. She had discovered that a servant had ordered the wrong curtains, and she was in a difficult position because the seller refused to take them back. Of course, she knows how to use imperial authority to solve this, she thought. But Lucia had decided to let the servant receive the appropriate punishment. She continued to reminisce. The curtains were eventually sent to the slums to be used as blankets. She made a silent assessment and checked the funds again. The quality was a bit lower than the original items, but Liliana had prepared replacements without breaking any laws. It seems she thought it through thoroughly, Lucia mused. Then, she praised Liliana. You did well. The curtain situation was handled nicely. Liliana replied, I didn't have much money before, so I often encountered similar situations. The princess asked, then why did you distribute the curtains to the slums? Liliana answered, I thought the people there needed them the most. Then she added, nobles have many choices. They wouldn't need these, and commoners wouldn't be in a hurry to use curtains as blankets. She continued, I don't even have a mansion large enough to use such big curtains. Hearing this, Lucia admired her inwardly. There's a reason Helios entrusted this matter to the Empress. I didn't simply think it was just because the Empress's position was vacant. Then she said to Liliana, hurry up and finish the work. Liliana immediately replied, yes, princess. Time passed. On the day of the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, Gabrielle looked around and said loudly with a look of disdain, I can't believe they use such cheap curtains here. If it were me, I would have definitely used better material. The girl beside her chimed in, I heard she originally intended to use better ones, but the servants made a mistake. She said angrily, how could she let the servants make such a mistake? It's her responsibility too. The girl beside her added, but because of this, the Empress is quite popular in the slums now. Hearing this, Gabrielle said sarcastically, is she from a kingdom of beggars? And now she's sympathizing with beggars. Above, a lady-in-waiting whispered something to the Empress Dowager. Then, the Empress Dowager addressed everyone. Now, let us raise our glasses together. She announced in front of the guests, first, I want to thank these individuals at my birthday banquet. I want to thank Princess Lucia and Empress Liliana. The Empress Dowager then publicly praised Empress Liliana, drawing the attention of even the royal family and nobles. I also admire Empress Liliana's concern for the slums. We should all follow her example. Seeing the murmurs below, Liliana felt uneasy. She turned to Lucia and whispered, why is the atmosphere like this? Did I do something wrong? Lucia quickly comforted her. It's all right. Just smile. Hearing this, Liliana gave the crowd a bright smile, but her heart was still filled with unease, unsure of what was happening. Seeing the young lady, Liliana thought, it seems Miss Gabrielle is mocking me again. The Empress Dowager has already helped so much. Then, she politely addressed the Empress Dowager. It's my honor to serve you, Your Majesty. We will always strive to meet the public's expectations. The Empress Dowager praised her again. The Empress has always taken meticulous care of everyone, without any oversight. The Empress Dowager continued, thanks to you, His Majesty also has fewer worries. Hearing this, Gabrielle's face darkened. She said sharply, I can't believe. At this moment, Duke Gabriel suddenly spoke, Your Majesty, the Empress has indeed done a wonderful job. He continued, I also want to help Lady Gabrielle with that matter. I wonder if that would be possible. Hearing his voice, Liliana was startled. That man. She immediately recognized Duke Grant Gabriel. Liliana remembered that he was also one of the people who had caused her death. Afterwards, the Empress Dowager asked the Duke, the Gabriel family wants to contribute. What do you plan to do? Duke Gabriel immediately replied, we will provide blankets for the slums and also hire them to work at our residence. Hearing this, Liliana thought to herself, as expected, he's guarding against me. She pondered, if they provide clean blankets or housing, then the curtains I sent will be meaningless. But on the surface, I can't find any fault. After hearing the Duke's words, the Empress Dowager praised him. It's wonderful to see everyone thinking of the people at my birthday banquet. Duke Gabriel added, my daughter is the same. She has always hoped to serve Your Majesty and care for the people. Perhaps having her by your side would be helpful. Liliana immediately saw through the Duke's intentions. He was indirectly urging the engagement. At this moment, Prince Helios spoke, I understand. He addressed Liliana as Empress. Helios asked her, have you familiarized yourself with the Empire? Liliana was surprised. She thought to herself, then slowly said, I still have much to learn, but Princess Lucia has helped me a lot. Hearing this, Helios replied, it seems I asked a redundant question. You've already prepared such a splendid banquet. He added, you and Princess Lucia have a good relationship, don't you? Helios then said to Liliana, perhaps you should also be in charge of preparing the next National Day celebration. Hearing this, Liliana thought, these words, he's clearly indicating that he has no intention of getting engaged, but why is he using me as an excuse? Then she immediately looked toward the crowd. I think I just heard something. Duke Gabriel was looking at her with resentment. Lucia noticed something was amiss and immediately asked, Your Majesty, are you feeling unwell? She inquired about Liliana with concern. Hearing this, Liliana replied, Your Highness. Before she could finish, Lucia interrupted, You should go and rest. There are many rooms here. Then Lucia instructed the maid, Sophie, take care of Her Majesty. The maid immediately replied, Yes, Your Highness. Sophie then helped Liliana back to the resting room. Watching them leave, Helios felt a little worried. Helios then said, Well then, now. He raised his glass and announced, Let us raise our glasses together. In the hall, Sophie asked her mistress, Are you feeling better? Liliana replied softly, I didn't expect myself to be so fragile. She thought to herself, I always talk back to Helios, but I freeze up when I meet truly dangerous people. How ridiculous. Someone suddenly called her Empress Liliana. Hearing the call, Liliana turned her head, and the person was... She recognized the man standing before her. It was the same one who had stood beside Lady Gabrielle at the banquet. He said to her, It's an honor to meet you. Your Majesty. He introduced himself. I am Val Gabriel. As soon as he finished speaking, Liliana worried inwardly. Gabriel, another Gabriel. She clenched her fists, her voice weary. They called him over. What's their purpose this time? Val smiled and continued, I came here specifically to see you. It would be quite unlucky to leave now. Liliana immediately refused. I have nothing to say. Seeing this, Val blocked her path and asked, Your Majesty, why are you so wary of me? The sudden collision caused the wine glass in Val's hand to spill, the liquid splashing all over Liliana's magnificent dress. Seeing this, Sophie cried out in alarm, Your Majesty. The maid anxiously said, Your Majesty, please. Before she could finish, Val offered his handkerchief to Liliana. Liliana decisively waved her hand, knocking Val's handkerchief to the ground. She glared at Val angrily, and then, as she left, Liliana said to Val, I'm truly sorry. At least take this handkerchief. I don't need it, and don't wait for me like this again. Inwardly, she berated herself. I did nothing wrong today. This must have been arranged by Lady Gabrielle, just to make me commit even the smallest mistake. Liliana thought resolutely. I already know how much she hates me. After being rejected, Val said helplessly, It's really not like that. The atmosphere became awkward. Just then, a knock came from the door. Everyone was startled and turned to look. Empress Liliana and Sophie were standing outside. Seeing turns, Liliana thought, I just walked into a random room. I didn't expect anyone to be inside, and his face looks familiar. Seeing her, Turns immediately introduced himself. Greetings, Your Majesty. I am Turns, Your Majesty's assistant, Duke Gavel, now the head of the Gavel family. So that's Gavel's father and Turns. Just now, Liliana immediately said, Mr. Turns. Turns asked her, but how did you end up here? Sophie quickly answered, young Master Val Gabriel has been harassing Your Majesty and even spilled wine on her. Hearing this, Liliana immediately cautioned Sophie. The maid continued, I'm sorry. I just bumped into him. Turns said awkwardly, if His Majesty finds out. Hearing this, Liliana replied, he doesn't need to know. Don't tell him. Suddenly, a familiar voice startled all three of them. That might be difficult. Helios continued, who did it? Val Gabriel. Liliana said, shocked, Your Majesty. Liliana immediately explained to Helios. He was holding a wine glass. I accidentally bumped into him. It's nothing. As soon as she finished, Helios immediately retorted, you're not blind. How could you bump into him for no reason? After listening to Helios's words, Liliana thought, that's right. If he hadn't blocked my way in the first place, this wouldn't have happened. I didn't even touch him like that. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. While she was lost in thought, Helios had already wiped the wine stain for her. It's dry now. Liliana said awkwardly, Your Majesty, She continued, her voice hesitant. I could do it myself. After Liliana finished speaking, both their faces flushed with embarrassment. Helios turned his face and said, "Sorry, I didn't mean to." Liliana awkwardly replied, "It's fine, really." At this moment, both of them turned their faces in different directions, but the embarrassment on their faces was still evident. Suddenly, Lucia burst through the door, shouting, "Helios." Hearing his sister's call, he just sighed. Lucia. Helios complained, "At least knock next time. You scared the Empress." Lucia said sharply, "Now's not the time for this." Then Liliana sternly called out, "Helios, do you know what you just did?" The princess scolded her brother, saying he wanted to gather influence for Empress Liliana, but why did he have to disregard Duke Gabriel like that? She continued to complain, "Does that help the Empress at all?" Hearing this, Helios replied indifferently, "Yes." As soon as he finished speaking, Lucia immediately shouted, "Helios." Helios said to his sister without hesitation, "Lucia, if you interfere again, you will no longer be my sister. I will only treat you as a royal princess." After the prince finished speaking, the atmosphere between the siblings became even more tense. Seeing this, Liliana carefully tugged on Helios' sleeve and said to him, "Now is not the time to quarrel." Hearing this, Helios pondered for a moment, then gently patted Liliana's shoulder, despite his sister still being angry beside him. Afterwards, Lucia lowered her voice and said, "I understand. I admit I was too agitated just now." She frowned and continued in a serious tone, "But you took a risk today. What happened at the banquet will make Duke Gabriel even more wary of the Empress." Helios continued, speculating that Duke Gabriel wasn't as foolish as his daughter and clearly had a well-thought-out plan. His tone implied such a scheme couldn't be concocted overnight. Upon hearing this, Lucia immediately asked, "What do you mean?" Helios quickly changed the subject. "We should first help the Empress return to the banquet." Liliana thought to herself, why did he suddenly stop? I'm curious too. Seeing Helios touch Liliana, Lucia immediately intervened. "Wait, let me handle this." Helios responded at once, "Lucia, the Empress and I are husband and wife." His sister retorted, "Just looking at you two, you don't seem like a married couple at all. What kind of husband and wife acts like this?" Helios glanced over and said, "We don't." Liliana panicked. "Has everyone noticed?" Lucia whispered in Helios's ear, "Is that so?" Then Helios said, "Send a message to the Empress's instructor. I think the first thing they need to teach her is how to control her expressions." Liliana immediately apologized, "I'm sorry." Lucia looked at Helios and said triumphantly, "Even though you're married, you haven't consummated the marriage. I'm not shameless enough to watch an unmarried girl change her clothes." Helios replied, "At times like these, you sound like my older brother." He then left the lounge, adding, "All right, I'll see you later, Empress. Remember to control your expressions at the banquet." Lucia said to Liliana, "All right, let's get you ready to go out." Liliana immediately replied, "Yes, Your Highness." While tidying Liliana's clothes, Lucia asked, "Empress, did you hear what I said earlier?" Hearing this, Liliana quickly answered, "Are you referring to Duke Gabriel making a move against me?" Lucia replied, "That's right. Now is not the time to sit idly by. We must prepare a countermeasure." Liliana asked, "Then what should we do?" She thought to herself, "He seems difficult to deal with. How did things turn out like this?" She muttered to herself, "I just want to live a peaceful life. Why am I caught up in this?" Lucia advised her, "Build relationships with those around you. Helios, don't address him with his imperial title." Liliana hesitated, but I'm an abandoned princess." Lucia immediately replied, "Yes, an abandoned princess. But after hearing your majesty's story, I have an idea." Liliana asked, "What is it?" Lucia whispered the plan to Liliana, then patted her shoulder and said, "Do your best." Then she said loudly, "Now, let's go." The maids answered in unison, "Yes." Liliana hesitated, "Your Highness," but Lucia had already left with the maids, leaving Liliana standing there, stunned. With Sophie, Liliana regretted, "They're all gone, and I didn't even say goodbye." Sophie softly called out, "Your Majesty." Liliana responded, "What is it?" Sophie said to her, "Regarding the matter you mentioned, we may find a clue soon." Hearing this, Liliana couldn't help but feel worried. After the Empress Dowager's birthday banquet, the Empress Dowager asked Helios, "Where is Empress Liliana?" He politely replied, "It seems she has already returned to the palace." Lucia added, "She was busy dealing with a wine stain earlier, so she must be tired." The Empress Dowager said, "Is that so? I wouldn't think the Empress would be so extravagant as to bring 2 gowns to the banquet." Lucia added gently, "She would come at any moment if you summoned her." Empress Dowager, The Empress is very innocent and lovely. Even if she's tired, she would come immediately, so let it be. Helios silently watched their exchange. He looked pensive, seeing her son's unusual expression. The Empress Dowager asked Helios, "What are you thinking, Your Majesty?" Helios raised his wine glass and slowly said, "Mother." He continued, "You can return to your homeland now." As soon as he finished speaking, the Empress Dowager asked in surprise, "What did you just say?" Helios continued, "You said you wanted to try being a mother. I didn't expect you to lie." He lowered his voice. "The meaning of revenge has disappeared. I'll let it go." Helios added, "Let it go. You don't have to leave forever, just for a while. Go on a journey." Leaving the table, Helios said to the Empress Dowager, "It will be a long journey." The Empress Dowager smiled and replied, "I'm not going anywhere." She said, "I haven't properly pretended to be a qualified mother yet. How can I leave?" Her hand trembled slightly as she continued, "Even if I leave, I will complete the task Your Majesty entrusted to me." Helios immediately objected. "Didn't I say I would do everything?" The Empress Dowager firmly said, "I didn't say that." She smiled brightly and continued, "Perhaps you did help Empress Liliana. Do you think that fulfills your motherly duties?" How amusing. Lowering her voice, she said, "Your Majesty, I've come to understand a few things." The Empress Dowager continued, "Even if I returned to my homeland then, I wouldn't have been happy." Helios asked, "What do you mean? How could I possibly be happy?" She explained softly, "I would constantly be thinking of my only son. Yes, it must be this way, even though I suffer greatly here. So, even if I returned to my homeland, I would still feel this way," the Empress Dowager concluded. Helios responded reluctantly, "As you wish." The Empress Dowager muttered to herself, "I will be in pain no matter where I go." She thought, "How ridiculous. I don't want to go back like that." Leaning against Princess Lucia, she sobbed, "Even so, it still hurts. I don't care about those things anymore." Helios looked back at her expressionless face. He thought for her son. Gazing into the distance, Helios pondered his own thoughts. He stared at the warm sunlight before him and thought, but at that moment, "Mother." Suddenly, he noticed something in the courtyard. The courtyard was filled with blooming flowers, reminding him of Empress Liliana's bright smile. "Your Majesty," she called to him. Seeing this, he fell into deep thought. Afterwards, Helios instructed a servant to the Emerald Palace. He thought, "Empress, I must go to the Emerald Palace to see Empress Liliana." Empress Liliana complained, "There were far too many apple pastries today. Though I didn't eat many." Seeing this, Choo-Choo asked, "Why don't you like apples?" Empress Liliana pouted, "No, it's because a stranger caused me trouble." She thought, thinking about it now, it's still absurd. Empress Liliana fell into deep thought. What was his intention? Looking at those 2 glasses of wine, it seemed like he was waiting for me. She asked Choo-Choo, "What else does Duke Gabriel's family have to say to me?" The Sprite replied, "Perhaps he just wanted to cause trouble." The Sprite Choo-Choo asked Empress Liliana, "Where is Duke Gabriel's home?" She replied, "That place is a den of villains. They only want to torment me." Choo-Choo firmly responded, "Is that so? Then when I regain my power, I will definitely punish them for you." Empress Liliana smiled at the Sprite. "Good, I only trust you, Choo-Choo." She thought, but before that, I have to unlock this chain. Empress Liliana poked Choo-Choo's face, pondering, to save Choo-Choo, I have to master Sprite magic quickly. The banquet is over. It's quieter now. I can concentrate. Hearing a knock, Empress Liliana wondered, who is it at this hour? She called out, "Come in." Sophie pushed the door open and said urgently, "Your Majesty, you must come out at once. Right now, at the Jewel Palace." Sophie continued, "It's at the Jewel Palace." Empress Liliana exclaimed, "What?" She and a servant quickly ran down the hallway. Arriving at the scene, Empress Liliana was immediately surprised to see Helios and cried out, "Your Majesty." Seeing her standing at the gate, Helios immediately responded, "Empress Liliana." Empress Liliana asked anxiously, "Why are you in such a hurry? You should have waited for me to greet you at the gate before entering." Helios calmly replied, "I'm just here to sleep. Why bother with such formalities?" Empress Liliana stammered, but wondered to herself, could it be that he came this late because... Seeing the prince's excited expression, Empress Liliana trembled slightly. Helios immediately comforted her, "Don't worry too much." He whispered close to Empress Liliana's ear, "You wouldn't allow it today anyway, would you?" Hearing these words, Empress Liliana froze. She thought with joy, "I understand. Helios is no longer a danger to me." Walking up the stairs, Helios said, "So I intend to change the procedure." Empress Liliana asked, "What procedure?" Seeing that he didn't answer, she pressed, "Your Majesty." Helios replied, "It's a secret." Sitting in a warm bedroom, the prince asked Empress Liliana, "Do you want to go back too?" Hearing this, she asked in return, "Is it because of the Empress Dowager?" Helios replied, "I asked first." Empress Liliana replied, "My situation is different from hers. I have no reason to miss my homeland. That small palace, not even a corner of the Emerald Palace, was my entire world. But if I were to return, I would only feel suffocated." Lowering her voice, Empress Liliana continued, "But even so, I still miss my mother. However, without me there, Mother must be living comfortably." Helios asked, "Why do you think so?" She replied, "Because I am the abandoned princess." Empress Liliana continued, "I have 4 older half-sisters. 3 of them don't care about me at all, and only Priscilla, the closest to me, enjoys tormenting me." Her voice choked with emotion. "Whenever I dared to defy her, the sound of the whip would echo through the palace where Mother and I lived." Empress Liliana recalled, "And my mother, who loved me very much, was in agony every time she saw this. There were many days when Mother knelt down and begged to be punished in my place. But no one listened." Liliana lowered her voice, because her child was being beaten, yet the mother could do nothing. "That's even more cruel, isn't it?" As soon as she finished speaking, Helios asked her, "Would you say such a thing too?" She countered, "Say what?" He replied, "That life is truly difficult." Hearing Helios's words, Liliana was taken aback. Then she immediately and earnestly explained, "I think so too. I rarely talk about these things normally." She continued, "But in your Majesty's presence, I always seem to say strange things." As soon as she finished, Helios took her hand and said, "That's because," he told her, "because I, too, am an abandoned child, just like you." Helios looked at her with sympathetic eyes. Liliana said to him, "I understand." She cupped the prince's neck with her hand and continued, "I must," letting Helios's head rest on her shoulder. Liliana then said, "Please, have mercy on yourself, your Majesty." Helios buried his face in Liliana's shoulder. He thought vaguely, and later he wouldn't be sure what he did, that made Liliana gasp softly in surprise. Helios embraced her tightly in his broad arms. Eventually, Liliana simply stroked his shoulder gently. After 2 minutes, she softly said, "Please forgive the Empress Dowager." Hearing this, Helios asked uncomfortably, "Why should I do that?" Liliana immediately replied, "Not for the Empress Dowager, but for yourself, your Majesty." He pressed further, "Why?" She gently answered, "Because you still love her." After listening to Liliana's words, Helios pondered for a long time. Later, Liliana suggested, "Your Majesty, would you like me to sing you a lullaby?" Helios seemed surprised. Liliana gently explained, "A lullaby will help you sleep more soundly." Hearing this, he smiled and replied, "All right, let's hear it then." Then, Liliana sang a lullaby to the still-awake prince. "Oh, wind, gently rock the cradle. Let my child sleep peacefully when mother is not around. You kicked off the blanket and turned over, oh wind, cover the blanket well, keep you warm, don't let you catch a cold when mother is not around." After listening to the entire song, Helios asked, "What song is that?" Liliana immediately replied, "It's a song my mother used to sing to me. It's a song the commoners of Miata love to sing, so it's normal that your Majesty wouldn't know it." She gently asked him, "Are you still unable to sleep?" He frowned and replied, "No, keep singing." Hearing this, Liliana agreed, "Your Majesty." Then, she continued to sing the lullaby from her homeland of Miata for him. Night fell, and moonlight bathed the quiet scenery. At this time, Val, holding a wine glass, admired the night view through the bedroom's glass window and murmured, "Just as I thought." He made up his mind, "I need to see Empress Liliana." Sunlight illuminated every corner of the royal couple's warm bedroom. Helios woke up early and quietly rested his chin on his hand, admiring his still-sleeping fiancée. Seeing that Liliana was still asleep, Helios asked her, "Are you still sleeping?" As he spoke, he gently touched the girl's rosy cheeks, and Liliana suddenly turned over. Helios subconsciously withdrew his hand, thinking, "Is she talking in her sleep?" He pondered to himself, "I don't intend to mistreat the Empress, but to wait until she feels at ease." Helios continued to think, "If she feels unsafe staying here, then I will grant her power and authority." He told himself, "If she feels that she cannot protect the child with her limited strength, then I will give her more." Gazing at Liliana, Helios thought happily, "It seems she likes it here more than I imagined." He secretly felt relieved. It's not bad to have such an amusing thing in this desolate palace. In the study of the Emerald Palace, shocked by the sight before her, Liliana couldn't help but wonder just how many books are there here? Sophie replied, not 10,000, there might be hundreds of thousands, Your Majesty. Liliana thought to herself, no, even if I carefully checked, there are at least 10 times that amount. It's as if all the books in the world are here. She fondly recalled her childhood, when she couldn't even enter the royal library because a low-ranking princess like her wasn't qualified to. She thought Priscilla always made a fuss about it, and the guards wouldn't let me in because of that. Then she muttered to herself, her tone cheerful, but it's different here. No one stops me. I can read any book I want, as much as I want. Just asking, do you want to read, is all it takes. Permission is so simple. Choo-Choo pointed ahead and said to Liliana, Lily, look over there, look. Following Choo-Choo's direction, Liliana marveled inwardly. Those are books about sprite magic. As Liliana tried to retrieve a magic book from the shelf, Sophie suddenly asked her about elven magic. Why is that, Your Majesty? She replied vaguely, I'm a little interested in it. The maid continued, but elven magic requires talent. Sophie's tone was laced with suspicion. Could it be? Liliana quickly explained, I think I can see sprites, so I wanted to try reading about it. She continued, besides, I don't have anything else to do in this palace anyway. Sophie then praised her, you really enjoy studying. Afterward, the maid said, then you read. I'll go put away the hat and coat. Liliana happily agreed. Okay. Liliana flipped through the pages, thinking, Choo-Choo is a sprite, but she doesn't understand the theory behind elven magic, so sometimes it's hard for her to grasp certain things. In times like these, it's best to start with the basics. There are 6 types of sprites: fire, water, wind, light, and earth. Sprite users usually choose one of these elements and form a contract with it, but those who can contract with 2 sprites at the same time are incredibly rare. However, this requires extraordinary talent and may even be life-threatening. Thinking of this, Liliana thought to herself, isn't the child I'm about to give birth to someone who can do this? It feels strange to read about this in a book. Choo-Choo suddenly alerted Liliana, Lily, someone is watching me. She immediately asked who. As soon as she saw the person, she panicked. That person was Vale Gabriel. She warily guarded herself, wondering, why would a member of the Gabriel family be in the royal library? Seeing Liliana seemingly avoiding him, Vale spoke, wait, Your Majesty. Vale asked her somewhat awkwardly, why have you been avoiding me? Is it because I look scary? She immediately replied, no, but it wasn't convincing at all. Vale continued, you and His Majesty get along well, right? Isn't he scarier than me? Liliana immediately replied, you're not scary either. Hearing this, he sighed inwardly. Sigh, she's even more wary than I thought. In this situation, it's better to get straight to the point. He gently explained, don't worry, I'm just happy to meet another sprite user. Liliana exclaimed in surprise, you can see sprites too. Vale continued, I've also formed a contract with a sprite myself, although it's only a low-level one. She questioned him, and what does that have to do with you being able to enter here? Vale immediately replied, yes, although I'm a member of the Gabriel family, nobles still need special permission to enter the royal library. He raised his burning hand and said, this is my sprite, Sasha. Sasha then flew to Choo-Choo's side and asked, is there a sprite here? Choo-Choo frantically waved Sasha away. Stay away. While Sasha calmly stated, Vale, they haven't formed a contract. Vale approached Liliana and asked, why does that sprite have chains on its feet? Liliana retorted firmly, you don't need to know. Vale asked Liliana again in a somber tone, Your Majesty, why are you so wary of me? Liliana immediately replied, you don't need to know that either. He pressed further, is it because I'm a member of the Gabriel family? As soon as he finished speaking, Liliana immediately hid behind a bookshelf. Seeing this, Vale quickly said, wait, I have something to say, something I wanted to say since that banquet. He reassured Liliana, don't worry, I'm not your enemy. Suddenly, she remembered what Helios had said. Wait, after hearing what His Majesty said, I just remembered that day. That day, Helios had whispered to Liliana, although Gabriel isn't on Misty's side. Gabriel, she thought to herself, but that doesn't mean he's a good person. And I still want to keep my distance from the Gabriel family as much as possible. But since he's a sprite user, I might be able to get some useful information. Liliana tentatively asked Vale, what do you want to say? Vale immediately replied, I understand why Your Majesty is wary of the Duke Gabriel's family. It's because the Gabriel family has always been very interested in Your Majesty. She asked Vale again, why say something everyone already knows? He continued, because I want to say, I'm not like them. Would you be willing to cooperate with me? Liliana then asked him, why should I trust you? Seeing that Liliana still didn't trust him, Vale immediately proposed, then I can offer Your Majesty 3 forms of assistance. Perhaps then you'll consider cooperating with me. Perhaps. Liliana thought to herself. The princess's suggestion is worth considering. Vale continued. First, regarding the chains on this sprite, I can sense something. She asked him, what is it? Vale proposed, can my sprite, and I touch it. Liliana asked Choo-Choo, is that okay? After Choo-Choo nodded, she said to Vale, I permit it. As soon as she finished speaking, the sprite Sasha flew to Choo-Choo's side, the little sprite tightly hugging the iron ball. Then Sasha immediately shrieked, it stinks. While hesitantly holding the iron ball, Liliana asked him worriedly, is something wrong? Vale Gabriel replied, Your Majesty, his voice turning serious. I sense an extremely powerful dark energy emanating from these chains. He clenched his fists, his expression grim. Your Majesty, it's an incredibly potent dark energy. Liliana, slightly frightened, hesitantly asked, Dark energy, isn't that just darkness? He shook his head. No, it's not quite the same. Of the 6 basic elements, I possess the power of darkness. Vale Gabriel continued, although many associate darkness with ominous things and consider it bad, that's not actually the case. Just like how night falls after the sun sets, it's natural. He looked at Sasha with concern. She seemed very uncomfortable, but my sprite says it stinks. It was rare for a sprite already accustomed to other elements to react so strongly. Vale Gabriel gestured toward Choo-Choo. In my opinion, the power within the chains might be too strong. Liliana asked, is that so? Choo-Choo looked at the iron ball. I don't smell anything strange at all. Liliana asked in surprise. Really? Choo-Choo, looking distressed, said loudly, but all I want now is for these chains to disappear. They're so uncomfortable. Vale Gabriel stroked his chin, also finding it difficult to understand. That's strange. Isn't this a wind sprite? Liliana asked, puzzled, what does he say about it? Sasha said angrily, the only element close to darkness is light. All other sprites detest the power of darkness. Vale Gabriel looked at Choo-Choo, who was listening with a fearful expression, yet the sprite seemed completely unaffected. He felt uneasy. Moreover, such a powerful dark energy. It's extremely unusual. Liliana pressed, unusual. Vale Gabriel replied, yes. She asked, can this sprite freely control the wind? He immediately answered, like a wind sprite, that's what I mean. Choo-Choo's face was filled with fear upon hearing this. She turned her head again to confirm, Choo-Choo is definitely a wind sprite, just weakened. Liliana said worriedly, Choo-Choo. Vale Gabriel quickly waved his hands in explanation. I understand. Perhaps my wording caused a misunderstanding. What I meant was this sprite, Choo-Choo, is likely sealed by these chains. Sasha said angrily, I'm not a sprite, it's just a fly. Choo-Choo asked disappointedly, a fly? He urged Sasha not to say such things, but she ignored him completely, sticking her tongue out and mocking Choo-Choo. Then Sasha disappeared. Whatever, I'm going to sleep. Liliana was about to ask about sprites, when Vale Gabriel, smiling, immediately explained, once a contract is formed, the sprite resides within the person they formed the contract with. She lowered her head, looking sorrowful. I don't know, Your Majesty. Vale Gabriel, recalling the shining magic stone, said, is this your first encounter with a sprite? I've heard that the Miata kingdom also has many sprites and magic stones. Liliana had to admit, I've always stayed in the palace, never gone anywhere. She stated her purpose for being there. I came to the library today to learn some basic knowledge. Vale Gabriel turned to look at the pile of books. I understand, but choosing a good book from this pile, that doesn't seem easy. Liliana agreed. Indeed. Vale Gabriel stared at her, making her wonder, why are you looking at me like that? He suddenly spoke, Your Majesty, if you were to ask me which book is good at a time like this, I believe I could help you, without any arrogance. Liliana's eyes widened in surprise. Oh, like the 3 forms of assistance. Vale Gabriel nodded, leaving her slightly stunned. In that case, I can be of service. He quickly picked out a book and continued, excuse me, this book seems quite suitable. Liliana thought happily, it's truly rare to have someone so earnestly helping me. Vale Gabriel focused on flipping through the book's contents. This book, perhaps I should find a more basic one. She also became hesitant, a worry different from the one she felt with Helios. Now, with Mr. Vale being so kind to her, Liliana began to have some doubts, thinking, doesn't that mean Mr. Vale wants something from me? Vale Gabriel handed her 3 books, suggesting, for beginners, these will be very useful. Liliana accepted them, replying, I'll read them. The book mentioned that light and darkness are often seen as opposites, but in reality, they're the only two elements closely related to each other. Liliana asked, "You said you could sense the power of darkness from the chains, right?" Vale Gabriel immediately replied, "That's correct, Your Majesty. You also have quite the aptitude. With enough practice, you too will be able to discern the elements." He pointed to a page in the book and speculated, "More importantly, based on what's written here, I believe perhaps a light or dark sprite could break it more effectively than a fire or wind sprite." Liliana continued to ask, "Then should I form a contract with a light or dark sprite?" Vale Gabriel stroked his chin in thought. Choo-Choo shouted angrily, "No, you can't form a contract with anyone other than me. It's not allowed." Liliana responded worriedly, "How long do you intend to drag this out?" She argued, her voice laced with frustration. "We just need to find a sprite user who has a contract with a light or dark sprite." Closing her eyes, Liliana added, "Wouldn't that be faster?" Vale Gabriel suddenly spoke with enthusiasm. "Your Majesty, I happen to know a light sprite user. If I introduce her to you, would that count as my first act of assistance?" Liliana asked, surprised, "Who is it?" He replied, "My younger sister, Agrippina Gabriel." Her expression suddenly shifted, becoming uneasy. Vale Gabriel continued, his head bowed slightly, as I said, "I'm not affiliated with Duke Gabriel, and neither is my sister. Of course, you don't have to trust me." The atmosphere grew tense. He continued, "After you accept my help 3 times, as I mentioned, you can decide whether or not to cooperate with me." Liliana hesitated. She didn't want to get involved with the Gabriel family. But then she glanced at Choo-Choo's chained feet. Thinking about removing the shackles, Liliana finally agreed. "All right, then arrange a meeting with Miss Gabriel." Vale Gabriel smiled happily. "Please choose a date and let me know. I'll make the arrangements." She replied, "Understood." With that, Liliana promptly left, saying, "If there's nothing else, I'll be going." "Sophia, let's go." Slightly surprised, Vale Gabriel said, I'll see you next time, Your Majesty." She exited the room, and Sophia gently closed the door. Liliana chuckled self-deprecatingly. "I'm not good at judging people, but I should at least observe those who approach me." She recalled her time confined in the Miata Palace. She had managed living expenses, so she knew how to handle simple financial matters, but she knew nothing about politics. Turning to Sophia, Liliana asked, "If I have an ally in the Gabriel family, if it's truly possible, wouldn't that be advantageous?" Sophia countered, "Do you truly believe you can cooperate with Master Gabriel?" Liliana replied innocently, "I don't know yet." Recalling Lucia Carlos's words, she continued, "But the princess told me to make more friends, to interact with more people. She specifically mentioned Master Gabriel." Sophia thought for a moment, then replied, "Indeed." Sophia suddenly asked, "But, Your Majesty, do you really have a sprite?" Liliana and Choo-Choo looked at her in surprise. "Huh?" Choo-Choo declared confidently, "Of course. I'm right here." Liliana chuckled. "Even if you say so, no one can see you." Choo-Choo stamped her foot in frustration. "Arg." Sophia persisted. "So, there really is a sprite." She extended her hand and continued to ask, "Right beside you." Sophia then asked, "Will you be reading the book you just brought back?" Liliana replied, "Yes. Prepare some tea for me." Looking at an ornate carriage, she asked, "What's that?" Sophia asked, surprised, "What carriage?" Liliana frowned, recognizing the crest. Inside the palace, someone said, "Your Majesty, Helio Carlos asks, what's wrong?" The butler behind him hesitated, then announced, "Duke Gabriel, Vesti Gabriel," the butler continued, "has arrived at the Emerald Palace." Liliana had met Vesti Gabriel before. Helio Carlos frowned and asked what. He stood up abruptly. "I'll go right away." The butler immediately stopped him. "No, you mustn't go." She suddenly called out to him, "Your Majesty." Then she ordered, "Don't go to the Emerald Palace." Misty Gabriel bowed her head. "Your Majesty, how have you been?" Liliana was filled with suspicion. This sudden visit and unusual behavior were too suspicious. "Why are you suddenly acting so polite?" She returned the greeting. "It's been a while, Misty. Is something the matter?" Misty covered her mouth and giggled. "I'm so disappointed to hear you say that. We'll be family soon." Liliana asked, bewildered, "What?" Misty Gabriel said cheerfully, "I've come to be your conversation partner." Liliana was speechless. Conversation partner. Did I hear that right? She quickly turned and said, "The entrance is this way, right?" Liliana replied, "Yes, please come in." She was wary, but she couldn't ignore her guest. Misty Gabriel looked at the magnificent scenery inside and exclaimed, "It's smaller than I imagined, but much more beautiful and luxurious." After all, you are a queen from a foreign land. You should at least have this kind of treatment. Maintaining appearances, she continued with a smile. I can see your majesty's dedication. Liliana smiled back. I understand. She thought to herself, I can only be polite for now, give her no reason to complain, and send her away as soon as we finish tea. Misty Gabriel complimented, Your Majesty is truly charming, perfectly suited for the throne. Liliana replied softly, Yes, I know. She lifted her teacup and began, Your Majesty, did you know? Ever since I was very young, I've only had eyes for you. Vesti Gabriel continued her story, oblivious to Liliana's discomfort. Of course, it wasn't just me. Countless girls admired him, even back when he was a prince. But everyone maintained their aristocratic dignity and avoided approaching him directly, she said suddenly, except for that girl, Caroline. Liliana, surprised, stopped her. Caroline. Vesti Gabriel gave a sardonic laugh. Ah, Your Majesty is completely unaware of the Empire's affairs. Well, there's no need, as she was just the daughter of an outdated noble family. Liliana inwardly marveled. She dares to look down on a foreign princess like me, and even Miss Caroline. Impressive. She braced herself for the rest of the story. Caroline, Vesti Gabriel reminisced, followed His Majesty everywhere. She would offer him handkerchiefs during hunts, write him letters whenever she had the chance, and only talk about His Majesty at tea parties. Her expression suddenly turned grim. It was truly shameless. Liliana offered a conciliatory smile. So, it sounds like she loved His Majesty very much. Let's not talk about people we don't know. Vesti Gabriel pressed on, undeterred. Indeed, she even abandoned aristocratic virtues to that extent. It shows how remarkable His Majesty is. Liliana felt a flicker of panic. She's not listening to me at all. She brought up Helio Carlos again. He never failed to rank first at the academy, always brought victory on the battlefield, not to mention his outstanding appearance. It's only natural that everyone yearned for His Majesty. Liliana replied, I know. Vesti Gabriel suddenly slammed her hand on the table. However, there are always all sorts of people. Her tone turned menacing. If anyone could just have a jewel simply because they wanted it. Vesti Gabriel leaned closer to Liliana. Wouldn't that be ridiculous? She gripped Liliana's hand tightly. Every jewel has its owner, and only that person can make it shine even brighter. Ow! Liliana cried out in pain. Miss, that hurts. Vesti Gabriel continued, unfazed. That person is. Her face was filled with arrogance. Indeed, it is Vesti. Your Majesty. Liliana was thoroughly intimidated. Truly, she warned, her voice rising. However, if Your Majesty tries to covet my position, Vesti Gabriel continued, I will show no mercy. Liliana quickly exclaimed, I have no such intention. Vesti released her grip in surprise. What? Liliana said fearfully, I'm not interested. I was just brought here as a hostage. Vesti Gabriel was still stunned when someone approached. It seems you're having a lively conversation. Both of them startled and looked back. Liliana exclaimed in surprise, the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager approached and inquired, Did you have a pleasant chat with Miss Gabriel? The Empress Dowager sat down. Your Majesty, do not go to the Emerald Palace. Helio Carlos asked, Don't you like the Empress very much? The Empress Dowager immediately replied, I do. I like her so much that I feel having such a daughter-in-law is far too good for an unworthy mother-in-law like me. He asked again, Then why are you stopping me? The Empress Dowager reminded him, Your Majesty, this is the Imperial Palace. She repeated, Do not forget, your affection for the Empress must be expressed through political actions. Like a meticulously arranged scarecrow, you must appear to care deeply for Duke Gabriel's heir. Helio Carlos looked surprised and hesitated. You, he said suddenly, startling the Empress Dowager. Are you saying I wasn't brought into this world in such a manner? The Empress Dowager closed her eyes in thought. I don't know, she said. Helio Carlos sat down. Don't let Duke Gabriel bear everything alone. He propped his forehead on his hand, lost in thought. The Empress Dowager continued, Always make him appear arrogant and foolish. Helio Carlos asked again, So you want me to make things difficult for the Empress? What a loving mother-in-law. The Empress Dowager replied softly, I don't intend to make things difficult for the child. She said with a smile, But if my dear daughter-in-law feels troubled, I cannot simply stand by. She decided to do something that would surprise him. Then I shall go to the Emerald Palace in Your Majesty's stead. Helio Carlos said with relief, As you wish. The Empress Dowager replied as she left, Thank you, Your Majesty. Mother, he said suddenly, this tea is not to my liking. Helio Carlos added another sentence, surprising the Empress Dowager. Please have it changed next time. The Empress Dowager turned back. What? He continued, you may leave now. Then Helio Carlos fell silent again. The Empress Dowager thought with emotion. Next time, she left in a pleasant mood, thinking, he and I have finally reached a point where there can be a next time. She thought happily, now the Empress's matter is entirely in my hands. This means he trusts me, that child trusts me. Her expression became resolute. Then, I must, she said firmly, repay this trust. As she finished speaking, Vesti Gabriel's face paled. I am curious. What were you talking about so pleasantly? She placed her hand on her chest. If you don't mind, then she said frankly, could this old woman also be privy to it? Liliana worried, thinking, oh no, if I tell the Empress Dowager what just happened. The terrifying expression of the Gabriel family flashed through her mind, and she panicked. Wouldn't I become a gossip monger? Vesti Gabriel will hate me. She felt at a loss, unsure what to do, but unable to avoid the Empress Dowager's question. Suddenly, she blurted out, Empress Dowager, if you're finished, please befriend this old woman. Liliana smiled and ushered Vesti Gabriel away. Yes, Empress Dowager. Well then, Duke Gabriel, please be careful on your way back. Thank you for coming. Still in shock, she thought, I'm still alive. Vesti Gabriel bowed his head. I'll take my leave, Your Majesty. Safe travels. She also bid farewell. Goodbye, Empress Dowager. Thank you for taking the time to see me. Liliana watched him leave. She breathed a sigh of relief. I think I made it through that safely. Then she noticed a bruise on her hand. The Empress Dowager's sudden question startled Liliana. It seems that young lady gave you a hard time. Liliana quickly denied it. No, Empress dowager. The Empress Dowager extended her hand. Is that so? If that's the case. She took Liliana's hand and asked sympathetically, what is this? Liliana quickly turned her face away. It's nothing. The Empress Dowager sighed and didn't press the matter. Then she said, I overheard a bit of your conversation when I entered the Emerald Palace. Liliana's heart pounded. From when? She recalled her earlier words and thought, well, I don't care. I was just brought here as a hostage. Could it be? She lowered her head, worrying. I'm done for. She kept thinking about how she dared to say in front of the Empress Dowager that she only became Empress by chance. Liliana desperately tried to think of a solution. If I'm not careful, it's easy to cause a misunderstanding in this situation. Just then, she suddenly cried out, Empress Dowager, please forgive me. Liliana bowed her head in apology. I misspoke. Her hands trembled slightly. She thought, the Empress Dowager has a good impression of me. I know, but I'm not the original protagonist. I don't have plot armor, so her favorable impression must be very, very faint. She automatically defended herself in her mind. In this situation, I can only beg her. She silently looked at the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager reached out a hand. Empress. She gently helped Liliana up, urging, get up quickly. Your knees will hurt. Liliana said blankly, She waited for the Empress Dowager to speak. The Empress Dowager asked with a smile, Liliana, why are you looking at me like that? Confused, Liliana didn't understand. Aren't you going to punish me? The Empress Dowager asked again, do you find me disagreeable? Liliana replied, no, but I'm a little sad. Liliana asked, sad. Why? The Empress Dowager's expression was somewhat lonely. I thought I was fairly kind to you, Empress, but you're still afraid of me. She countered, do you think I would punish you for such a small matter? Liliana quickly waved her hands in denial. No, absolutely not. She took the Empress Dowager's hand. Empress Dowager, I'm sorry. I am truly sorry. The Empress Dowager still seemed a little sad. Perhaps I haven't been good enough to you, Empress. Liliana said shyly, but loudly, no, that's not true. It's really not true. Not all. The Empress Dowager laughed. I was only joking, Empress. You're so cute. She reminisced. I was also brought here as a hostage to become Empress, and I spent my entire life immersed in resentment. So how could I blame you? She sat down on a chair and continued. Actually, as soon as I heard that Duke Gabriel had come to the Emerald Palace, I rushed over here, worried that he would give you a hard time. She expressed her concern. I was afraid that child would embarrass you. Liliana quickly thanked her. Thank you. The Empress Dowager replied, there's no need to thank me, but there is something I wanted to ask you. She smiled brightly. You can ask me anything. The Empress Dowager began, could it be? Then she asked directly, do you think my son isn't good enough? Liliana cried out in surprise, The Empress Dowager looked a little dejected. Then what should I do to make you satisfied? Liliana quickly explained, no, how dare I evaluate His Majesty? The Empress Dowager dowager continued, but I think he seems quite all right, don't you? She thought of His Majesty Helio Carlos and thought to herself, of course. To be honest, after all, he's the emperor. No one dares to gossip about him. But it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say he's one of the most handsome men in the empire. She immediately praised him. Although His Majesty is a bit mischievous, he's truly very good to you, Empress. Liliana could only laugh awkwardly. Aha, she thought, that's really hard to refute. Liliana picked up her teacup. I'm also very grateful to His Majesty. Inwardly, she hesitated. But when I think about, how dare I? No matter how good he is to me, he is the emperor, after all. The Empress Dowager continued, it seems inappropriate for me to act like this as his mother. How about this? If His Majesty does anything wrong, tell me secretly, and I'll help you figure something out. She couldn't help but laugh as she imagined the scenario. Yes, haha. She laughed and said, His Majesty said the same thing. You two are really alike. She asked, surprised, His Majesty and I are alike. Liliana continued, the whole palace knows you're alike. In fact, I think you look very similar. Seeing you promise me like this, I even think your personalities are alike. She lowered her head slightly and said, this is the first time I've heard that. Liliana's eyes widened. She thought, wait. She felt it, this atmosphere. She suggested, can you tell me more? Can you tell me a little more? She continued to ask, how am I like my son? Liliana gradually understood the meaning of this sentence. She remembered the original story. This was exactly what that child had heard. Because from the beginning, it was that child who heard that the Empress Dowager and the Emperor were alike. Liliana always felt that this was originally that child's role in this life, unsure if they would be born. She asked the Empress Dowager. She quickly rubbed her hands and said, actually it's nothing. It's harder to find differences. Then she recounted the similarities between her and His Majesty Helio. I personally think your eyes are very similar. Blue eyes look even more beautiful in the shadows. Outside, the sky gradually darkened. The conversation started like that, then the topic changed several times, but it continued until evening. The table was filled with delicious food, and in the end, I even had dinner with the Empress Dowager. Perhaps it was because today, I knew the Empress Dowager was very fond of me. Liliana recalled the happy time she spent with the Empress Dowager. For the first time in a long time, she felt that eating with someone else was so fun and comfortable. But she still had one important thing to do today, something she couldn't ignore. Liliana then called Sophia, who stepped forward from behind and replied, yes, Your Majesty. Liliana then ordered, go and investigate a noble lady named Caroline outside the palace. The sky was almost bright, and Liliana was sitting reading when someone called her. Your Majesty, Sophia hurried over and said, I've already investigated the girl you mentioned last time, Caroline. She was also surprised it was so fast. Liliana, remembering Miss Gabriel's words, thought, she follows His Majesty every day. It's outrageous. If what she said was true, for a noble lady, such behavior was indeed very improper, so it wasn't difficult to investigate. She asked Sophia, then who is she? Sophia replied, Caroline was the only daughter of the Marquis of Liston. Sophia had to continue her report, but recently she has passed away. She continued her report, much to Liliana's surprise. I heard she died in a carriage accident. There are also rumors that Duke Gabriel was behind it. Sophia added, I also heard that the place wasn't prone to accidents at all. Liliana panicked, thinking, this is Gabriel. She remembered her terribleness. So this is why she suddenly approached me recently. If I don't want to end up like Caroline, she's warning me to be careful. Liliana was speechless at Vesti Gabriel's hypocritical face. I'll be your conversation partner. What partner? She thought about the people around her one by one. The Emperor pitied her. The Empress Dowager was kind to her, and Princess Lucia had a good impression of her. However, despite all this, Vesti Gabriel still approached her with malice. Her mind was even more wicked than in the original story, and her killing intent was even stronger. She closed the book and pondered, if this continues, I will meet a tragic end just like in the original story. Liliana's face was full of worry. She thought, I'm just a small hostage, practically unable to do anything. But then she remembered the hateful Gabriel. If I help you 3 times, will you consider cooperating with me? Her eyes filled with determination. She thought, I can't just sit here and wait for death. Liliana turned to Sophia and said, help me contact Master Vale Gabriel. She already had a plan in mind. At least she needed to know what was happening in the Duke's mansion. She added, tell him I want to see him in that magnificent palace. Vale Gabriel stepped forward with a smile and said, thank you for summoning me. Your Majesty Liliana. Liliana politely replied, I should be the one thanking you for accepting the invitation. He reached out and pulled the girl behind him forward, introducing her. This is my younger sister, Agrippina. Agrippina, Gabriel ran over and said happily, Oh my gosh, she exclaimed excitedly. It's the wind sprite. Agrippina, Gabriel said excitedly, This is the first time I've seen a wind sprite. Vale Gabriel quickly pulled his sister back, saying, Please forgive my sister's rudeness, Your Majesty. She's usually very calm, but she gets like this when it comes to sprites. Liliana replied with a smile, It's all right. Enthusiasm is a good thing. Hope also ignited in her heart. Who knows, maybe this enthusiasm could save Choo Choo. Agrippina also spoke up, I'm sorry for my rudeness, Your Majesty. Actually, I've always wanted to make a contract with a wind sprite. She continued somewhat shyly. As you may know, wind sprites are very rare, so I couldn't contain myself when I saw one in person. Liliana suddenly realized, rare. The original story never mentioned that. That child simply wasn't chosen by a wind sprite, and instead formed a contract with a fire and light sprite. She asked again, Are wind sprites really that rare? Agrippina Gabriel replied, Yes. Among the 6 great elements, wind sprites are the fewest in number. She further explained, Earth sprites are the most common element, 10 times more numerous than wind sprites. Liliana said, somewhat surprised that few. Actually, I only recently discovered I have a talent for sprite magic, so I don't really know much about it either, she said with a smile. I understand. Yes, sprites don't care much for theory. Perhaps they haven't told you. Choo Choo, hearing this, cried out in surprise, what? She stammered, yes, I don't care about those things either. Liliana looked at her suspiciously, thinking, something's fishy here. I need to investigate this properly. She then asked, Wait, miss, are you a light sprite user? Agrippina Gabriel replied happily, Yes. She summoned her sprite, saying, Your Majesty, allow me to introduce you. This is my sprite, Vivi. Liliana exclaimed, How beautiful. Agrippina Gabriel added, Everyone says light sprites are the most beautiful element. She continued, When I was feeling down because of the difficulties of the contract, Vivi appeared before me. Agrippina Gabriel smiled and said, I have no reason to refuse living with such a beautiful being. Looking at the glittering Vivi, Liliana couldn't help but be captivated as well. Truly beautiful. If a light sprite is already this dazzling, how powerful would the light sprite king be? Agrippina Gabriel looked at Vivi and said, Come on, Vivi, I called you because we need to help a friend. Vivi looked at her and asked friend. She flew to Choo Choo's side and said, Wind sprite. Vivi looked at the iron ball in Liliana's hand and cried out in surprise. Oh my. Choo Choo asked, somewhat fearfully, what? Vivi hugged the ball happily, saying, I can sense a very wonderful energy. Stroking it, she continued, Perfect darkness, very wonderful. Just touching it, it's really amazing. Choo Choo continued to look at her with some apprehension. Agrippina reminded Vivi, This friend is having trouble because of this chain. Vivi asked innocently, But why? I can sense a wonderful energy. She explained, She's a wind sprite, not like you. And this chain restricts her freedom. Vivi asked in confusion, Is that a problem? Agrippina Gabriel then said, Can you help with your light magic? Vivi asked again, If you promise to give me this beautiful chain. Choo Choo said loudly, somewhat annoyed, Take it, it's yours. She flew up high, emitting light, and said, You promised. A light slowly flowed into the iron ball, and a golden butterfly landed on it. The iron ball suddenly flew up, and Vivi said, Done. It's finished, she continued. With my power, this is all I can do. Choo Choo gasped in surprise. Oh, she said excitedly, It's smaller now. Vivi, though somewhat tired, calmly said, A light sprite can at least do this much. Vivi added, However, the power of this chain is too strong, and I can't do much more. She suggested, Perhaps you should find a light sprite or a dark sprite stronger than me. Liliana thought, somewhat disappointed. So that means I have to find a sprite user who is more skilled than anyone. She hesitated. But if I do that, others will misunderstand and think I'm building a faction. Vale Gabriel, also realizing this, said, Does your Majesty find it difficult to find another sprite user? Liliana explained, I don't want others to think I'm too greedy. Looking at the 2 sprites in her hand, she said sadly, I just want to be a queen who lives a quiet and peaceful life. Vale Gabriel suddenly stared at her. His eyes flickered slightly. Vale Gabriel suggested again, In that case, your Majesty, please allow us to find a skilled sprite user for you. After all, we haven't helped enough. Liliana thought, somewhat surprised. I didn't expect that. I thought this would count as one of the 3 favors, regardless of success or failure. But she suddenly asked, why are these 2 going to such lengths? She made up her mind. Now I have to figure out Vale Gabriel's true purpose. Vale Gabriel asked, to what extent does your majesty believe your influence can extend? Liliana replied, I am a princess of a fallen kingdom. An abandoned princess, she said without hesitation. It's fortunate enough to live to old age, isn't it? He praised, you're realistic. I don't know if it's rude to say this, but your ability to see things clearly is admirable. Liliana lowered her head and replied sadly, of course, it's rude to say that, Vale. Gabriel turned his face away and said, I apologize if I made you uncomfortable, but I'm truly determined to be in the same boat as your majesty. She suddenly exclaimed, then why? This time he said seriously, your majesty's expression before the social event was very obvious. Gabriel, mentioning Helio Carlos, made no attempt to hide his intention to hand over power to the queen and the relationship between the queen and Princess Lucia. Helio Carlos said at that time, from now on, all royal affairs will be handled by the queen. Liliana hurriedly explained, that was to provoke Duke Gabriel, and also to delay Misty Gabriel from becoming queen no matter what. Gabriel took a piece of paper from his pocket and said, I thought so too, at first. He placed the paper on the table and continued, however, after a thorough investigation, I've discovered some peculiarities. She picked up the paper and exclaimed in surprise, is this it? She read aloud, Marquis Raquel of the Miata Kingdom has applied for naturalization in the Empire and is currently en route. Vale Gabriel asked, do you know Marquis Raquel? Liliana firmly replied, of course. She put the paper down. Even someone as estranged as I was in the kingdom couldn't be unaware of such influence. Liliana recalled, I heard that Marquis Raquel was originally a count, but the current head of the family expanded their business and invested the profits in the Miata Kingdom. He was granted the title of Marquis for his contributions. She mentioned the land, and in Western Miata, he's a very capable lord. She then asked, but why would he want to naturalize in the Empire? Vale Gabriel calmly replied, I found it strange as well, so I investigated from various angles. He continued, firstly, although Marquis Raquel made quite a few arrangements for this, before applying for naturalization, he retained some large-scale projects and didn't cancel them. Liliana said, shocked though, won't the Miata Kingdom be furious? Vale Gabriel negated, no, the kingdom has remained silent. Liliana asked again why. He hesitated. Perhaps, Vale Gabriel speculated, asking her, your majesty, a very powerful force has intervened in this matter. If the core of the Raquel Merchant Association flows into the Empire, who do you think would benefit the most? Liliana also pondered, stroking her chin. Could it be the Carlos Empire itself? Vale Gabriel shook his head. Obviously, the Empire would also benefit, but that's not the key reason for that powerful force to intervene. She looked at him and asked, could it be you're referring to me? Vale Gabriel frankly replied, precisely. They will definitely try to form an alliance with you. In that case, your majesty, you would have a faction supporting you within the entire imperial capital. He continued to speculate. I believe the powerful force that intervened in this matter is likely. Vale Gabriel stated, that person's identity, the emperor of the empire, his majesty Helio. Liliana's heart tightened, and she thought to herself, really? Helio, would he really do this for me? A trace of sadness surfaced in her eyes as she denied herself. No, she was still lost in thought. Even if that's the case, it's just a result of responsibility and political maneuvering. Does Helio truly cherish me from the bottom of his heart? Is he truly willing to bestow such unparalleled power upon me? At this moment, Vale Gabriel spoke. His Majesty wants to cultivate you into an independent force, undoubtedly to counterbalance Duke Gabriel. He continued, Helio Carlos's plan is, after stopping Duke Gabriel, what do you think His Majesty will do next? Vale Gabriel went on, he will never leave all the power to you. In other words, you will be left behind by us in the future. He solemnly declared, at least, I won't let your majesty be betrayed by the emperor, forgotten in the cold, dark corners of the palace. Vale Gabriel firmly stated, I won't let you walk at the forefront. The ones at the front will be me and my sister, Agrippina. He said confidently, I will become the head of the Gabriel family. Vale Gabriel affirmed again, and Agrippina will become the empress of the empire. He expressed this in a way that greatly shocked Liliana. We also hope that your majesty will walk that path with us. Time passed. A few days later, someone said, "So, in this situation, Liliana was concentrating on her studies. These are all taught to me by the tutors arranged by Princess Lucia." She looked at Heston Cyril and thought, among them, this person. He was asking her, "Your Majesty, you know a lot, don't you?" Heston Cyril is a professor at the academy, right? Liliana remained optimistic, thinking even difficult courses are easier to understand than his. There's a lot of homework, so it's quite tiring. She smiled and replied, "Yes, Professor Heston, I understand." Heston Cyril closed the book and said, "Let's end here for today." He continued, "Then, Your Majesty, this time's homework." Liliana silently prayed in her heart, "Please, let it be simple. Please." Heston Cyril gave the assignment. Recently, Marquis Raquel of Miata submitted an application for naturalization. Please analyze what Miata will lose, what the Empire will gain, and Marquis Raquel's true intentions. She froze in surprise and asked, Liliana recalled that the professor always assigned homework about major historical events. In the previous lessons, he had asked her to analyze the intentions and hidden purposes of commanders in wars. Now it's another question without a clear conclusion. Heston Cyril continued, "This assignment is not from Your Majesty's perspective, but please think from a higher vantage point, as if you could see the whole picture." She guessed, "You mean I shouldn't be limited by my origins in the Miata kingdom and should view the issue objectively?" She smiled and replied, "Okay, I will do that." He bowed his head and said, "Then I'll take my leave." Liliana bid farewell and goodbye. She stretched and said, "Observe the issue from a higher vantage point, huh?" Suddenly, someone said, "I've heard something interesting again." Liliana spun around, startled, recognizing the voice instantly. Looking up, she saw Helio Carlos. He greeted her with a smile. "It's been a while, Empress." He walked slowly towards her as she thought, "I've been so busy with my studies lately. It has been a while. So much homework, I can hardly think." Helio Carlos stopped in front of her. He spoke, catching her off guard. "It seems the palace etiquette instructors aren't being very strict." Liliana suddenly realized, that's right, His Majesty is here, and I haven't even curtsied. She immediately apologized. "Please forgive me, Your Majesty." Helio Carlos chuckled and lifted her chin. "It's all right." He looked directly at her, a playful glint in his eyes. "It seems haughtiness is part of the Empress's charm." Liliana said, surprised again. He paused. "HM." She leaned closer and asked, "Are you teasing me again?" Helio Carlos turned his head and replied calmly, "Oh, I haven't done anything." He added leisurely, "It seems the Empress hasn't seen me in a while to be so easily tricked." Liliana retorted indignantly, "Anyone in the Empire would be tricked, not just me." Helio Carlos changed the subject. "Is that so? You said you're studying. How is it going?" Liliana, still pouting, cheeks puffed out, replied, "Since these are subjects I'm learning for the first time, I haven't fully grasped them yet, but I think I'm doing all right." She added, "Right now, the lessons are mainly focused on politics and economics." "Oh, and the professor is also teaching me history." Helio Carlos pondered for a moment. He then asked, "I heard you just received an assignment. Is it difficult?" Liliana asked in surprise, "Have you seen the professor?" He replied, "I ran into him on my way in." Recalling her studies, she said, "Some parts are indeed difficult, but Professor Heston teaches very well, so it's manageable. And studying is actually quite interesting." Helio asked with concern, "Is that so? Then let's see if you can do well." Liliana asked, slightly surprised. He asked the same question Heston Cyril had posed. "Empress Liliana, what are your thoughts on Marquis Raquel's naturalization?" Helio crossed his arms, a playful expression on his face. "You can give me your overall impression." In contrast to his gentle demeanor, Liliana's face paled, and she remained silent. A voice suddenly echoed in her mind. "Impossible. He'll hand over all the power to the Empress." It was as if someone was standing beside her, whispering venomous words in her ear. "One day, the Emperor will surely abandon you." The voice continued in a low murmur. "So why don't you prepare for it in advance?" Her heart raced, filled with fear. Returning to the present, Liliana thought, "Does Helio really want to know my opinion on this matter? Should I ask him?" She lowered her head, afraid to look directly at Helio, certain he would notice something. After a moment, as if having made up her mind, she looked up. "Well, this might be a test." She answered Helio resolutely, "I don't have a deep relationship with Marquis Raquel. It would be a lie to say I don't know him, but I've never actually met him." Unaware of Liliana's inner turmoil, Helio asked, "So that means there's no connection?" Liliana answered frankly, "But if Marquis Raquel settles in the Empire, I can shed the image of a defeated princess. She lowered her head and said with a bitter smile, you know, even the children on the streets mock me. Helio listened quietly as Liliana continued, and Marquis Raquel can't really be of much help to your majesty. Although he's from Miata, there are many large trading companies there. He said curtly, that depends on him. Liliana suddenly brightened. I understand. Then there's no problem. Her attitude puzzled Helio slightly. All right. Liliana turned away, no longer looking at him. Like I said, as long as his naturalization doesn't cause any trouble for your majesty, I have no objections. She looked out the window cheerfully. After all, he's also from my homeland. Liliana mused. Perhaps he came here because he hates his homeland, causing Helio to pause. She turned back to him with a cheerful smile. I guess he's the same as me. I don't like that place either. Helio suddenly burst out laughing. Ha! Liliana was bewildered. He then said, you're even more clever than I thought. This only added to her confusion. He gave her a humorous appraisal. You really are like a cute little squirrel. Liliana was speechless. A squirrel. You must have some other meaning in mind. Helio changed the subject. I haven't had any free time lately. Let's have dinner together tonight. The sudden shift in topic caught Liliana off guard. Alright. He added casually, and let's sleep together. Liliana nodded instinctively. She suddenly froze. Her shriek echoed through the palace. What? Sunlight streamed through the windows, brightening the room. Helio was busy looking over documents. Being the emperor of the empire wasn't always enjoyable. He recalled the previous night. Last night, I was just teasing her. The Empress's reaction was quite amusing, so I was entertained. He looked amusedly at Liliana, who lay tensely beside him, pretending to sleep. But now that the sun has risen, I must return to my study. Helio picked up a document and glanced at it. Thanks to the Empress, there have been quite a few interesting occurrences lately. Even these dry reports have become a little less tedious to read. As he pondered this, someone entered. Helio looked up at the newcomer, his train of thought undisturbed. This was entirely different from dealing with those fools who thought themselves clever. Duke Gabriel bowed. Your Majesty, I hear there are many talented individuals among this year's Academy graduates. Helio ignored Gabriel's fawning and continued. It would be advantageous for your Majesty if they could demonstrate their talents in various positions. Gabriel pressed his flattery. Our empire is overflowing with talent. Clearly, the heavens favor your Majesty. Helio was long immune to such empty praise. Indeed, and with Marquis Raquel of the Miata Kingdom also requesting naturalization, even more talent will gather. He remarked, it seems good fortune will grace our empire this year. Gabriel suddenly spoke up. Your Majesty, there's a matter I wish to address. He began, Marquis Raquel was a loyal prime minister of the Miata Kingdom. Why would he seek naturalization in our empire? I believe he has ulterior motives. Gabriel disagreed with the naturalization. Our empire already has an abundance of talent. Why bring in a potential time bomb? Helio interrupted him. The Duke's words are not without merit. Gabriel quickly added, moreover. He paused, feigning difficulty. Helio gestured for him to continue. Where Helio couldn't see, Gabriel revealed a sinister smile. Your Majesty, are you aware of Queen Liliana? He deliberately slowed his speech. She is not a relative of Marquis Raquel. As soon as he finished speaking, Helio felt a prickle of discomfort. He calmly stated, explain yourself. Gabriel continued to sow discord. I've heard that Marquis Raquel has already established contact with Queen Liliana. He feigned righteousness and concern for the empire. If the two join forces, the influence of the Miata Kingdom will interfere with the internal affairs of our Carlos Empire. Gabriel elaborated, Marquis Raquel was the loyal prime minister of Miata, and Queen Liliana is their beloved princess. He concluded, these two will never betray Miata and truly submit to the Carlos Empire. After listening to Gabriel's statement, Helio sighed softly and said, I will reconsider Marquis Raquel's naturalization. Gabriel bowed his head. Thank you, Your Majesty. Having achieved his goal, he said with satisfaction, then I shall take my leave. Helio responded indifferently. Gabriel thought to himself, of course. How could such power be handed over to that queen? Standing at the door, he continued to scheme. Moreover, only Marquis Raquel has had contact with the queen, yet she hasn't made any particular moves. But if the queen isn't a fool, she won't miss this opportunity. Gabriel turned, thinking with satisfaction. Marquis Raquel's naturalization has failed. With the emperor's indifference, I no longer need to worry about that mediocre queen. He left with a calculating expression. No need to kill her anymore. If Misty becomes queen, trapped in the palace for me to toy with. That wouldn't be bad either. A few days later, at the Emerald Palace, the sky was clear and sunlight filled every corner. Marquis Raquel approached cheerfully. Princess, Liliana and her maids were already waiting. She greeted him happily. Welcome, Marquis Raquel. However, I am no longer princess. Raquel smiled. You're both a princess and a queen. Since I haven't been naturalized yet, you are still a princess to me. He paused, rummaging in his pocket. First. Then he placed a box in Liliana's hand. This is what Her Highness requested. She anxiously opened the box and inspected the contents. After confirming everything was correct, Liliana breathed a sigh of relief and handed the box to a maid beside her. Thank you. I won't forget this kindness. Raquel bowed his head. You're welcome, princess. He whispered to her, the real stage is beyond this. Liliana nodded silently. Raquel immediately brightened. Then I'll take my leave, princess. I'll see you again. Queen Liliana also pretended to be nonchalant. Yes, Marquis, you've traveled a long way. Please rest first. After Raquel left, rumors about him and her quickly spread. Liliana breathed a sigh of relief. Thinking back, she mused, there are rumors that Marquis Raquel gave me a gift. The rumors had many versions. Some said it was a black opal, the kind that's only produced once a year. Others said it was a land deed for Niagara. Some believed it was just an ordinary land deed, or perhaps a transfer of mineral rights. The rumors intensified, and people's perception of her changed greatly. Liliana sat in her room, leisurely sipping tea, as two maids entered, holding items in their hands. Before, she was treated as a favored concubine, but now, more and more people were consulting her about political matters. She thought to herself. Sometimes, even Liliana was bewildered by the gifts the maids brought. What is this? The maids replied excitedly. These are gifts sent to the Emerald Palace. Would your majesty like to open them? Liliana looked helplessly at the table piled high with boxes. While called gifts, they could also be bribes. Some gifts were strange. Why would someone send such perishable ingredients? One box caught her attention. Liliana picked it up and examined it carefully. What is this? Sophia quickly checked the list. This is a gift from the Liston family. Liliana gasped. Liston? Is it from Caroline Liston? Sophia replied, yes. Your Majesty, she reported truthfully. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a noblewoman approached the window. A maid's voice rang out, a gift from Marchioness Liston. A cold look appeared on the noblewoman's face. Back with Liliana, after learning the origin of the gift, she pondered if it's from the Marchioness. If Caroline Liston is dead, doesn't that mean the Marquis Liston, who has been living a quiet, secluded life? She opened the gift box to confirm. But why would he suddenly send me a gift? Sophia stepped forward and handed Liliana a list. Your Majesty, I have compiled the gift list. Liliana hurriedly put the gift back in the box. Taking the list, she asked Sophia, puzzled, but didn't you say Duke Gabriel was also involved in Marquis Raquel's naturalization? And His Majesty isn't happy about it either. Sophia replied, but Marquis Raquel is still residing in the capital. Sophia said excitedly, His Majesty has been delaying the request. I heard Duke Gabriel is so worried that he visits His Majesty every day. Liliana could almost picture their daily conversations. Once a day. How persistent. A wave of sadness washed over Liliana. But why hasn't Helio made a decision yet? I clearly gave him my answer. What's wrong? Sophia continued. And if the Marquis's naturalization is successful, he said he'll introduce black opal to the Empire's market. She concluded, so the Empire's nobles are secretly welcoming him. Liliana was astonished. Is that so? She looked back at the gifts, pondering. Well, first, if these gifts aren't given with good intentions, they should be returned. Keep only those I could easily afford with the money I received. The maid replied, yes. Liliana looked at the strange gifts on the table, feeling perplexed. The nobles were sending more than just gifts. What were their true intentions? Even the distant arson region had sent rare items. Sophia silently carried the gifts away. The maid who had been standing behind Liliana suddenly spoke. Your Majesty, may I say something? Liliana was startled. The maid said, arson is a prosperous region, deeply influenced by diplomacy, so they must be closely related to the faction behind Raquel. Therefore, if Marquis Raquel's naturalization fails this time, he will have nowhere to go, neither in the Miata kingdom nor the Carlos Empire. She added, if that happens, the influence of Raquel's faction will decline, and Arson's interest will decrease as well. The maid continued, so, among those who sent gifts, the most desperate party is Arson. Liliana was stunned. The maid added, please forgive my presumption for saying so much. She bowed her head, showing remorse. Liliana stared at her blankly, a jolt going through her. Is this the first time this maid has interfered in my affairs? Liliana looked at the maid behind her. She was truly loyal. Because she was a watchdog sent by Helio, it was difficult to consider her as one of her own. Even so, Liliana smiled. She turned cheerfully to the maid and said, this is very helpful for Professor Heston's task. Thank you. The sudden gratitude confused the maid. You're welcome. The atmosphere in the room became harmonious. Liliana watched quietly as Sophia carried the gifts away. Marquis Raquel's naturalization is like a time bomb. I don't know when it will explode, she thought. She picked up her teacup, pondering. But we can't waste time being afraid. Liliana looked at the teacup in front of her. I have to be prepared and do what I can. A while later, in the palace, Hm. Liliana looked at Heston in surprise. Heston, you're going to be in charge of teaching me all my lessons. Yes, Your Majesty. It's the royal command. Liliana recalled the last time she shared a bed with Helio, excitedly telling him, Professor Heston treats me like a real student, so I prefer it, even though it's stricter than other classes. Liliana thought, could it be? She looked at Heston with concern. Heston, I'm sorry. Maybe His Majesty gave this order because I said I like your classes. Liliana's face paled. What will the other teachers think of me? Her worry left Heston speechless. They're too cautious when they teach me, but Heston is different. I feel more comfortable. He sighed and took off his glasses. What's wrong with a student wanting to learn? Heston rubbed his forehead gently. If that's the reason, then it's fine. He spoke seriously. And since I'm in charge of social etiquette lessons, there's something I need to tell you. Don't apologize so easily in the future. After saying this, he calmly put his glasses back on. Liliana quickly replied, yes. Heston's demeanor suddenly became stern. You don't need to be so flustered. You're a member of the royal family. Remember to stay composed. Liliana replied firmly, yes. Heston frowned. Don't answer in such a valiant tone either. Liliana sighed. Ah, yes. Seeing this, Heston smiled. He said, well then, let's start with last week's assignment. Suddenly, someone interrupted. Ahem. A maid bowed and reported, Your Majesty, His Majesty summons you to the conference room. Liliana froze, the ticking time bomb in the conference room exploding in her mind. She stood up ly, telling Heston, I'm sorry, Heston, today's lesson ends here. She turned to leave, but Heston quickly called out, please wait, Your Majesty. He looked at her seriously. I will escort you. Liliana was taken aback. But the conference room? Heston didn't give her a chance to refuse. I will escort you. Liliana still felt a little embarrassed, thinking how could she let such a noble scholar as Heston escort her. But Heston decisively said, it's all right, he said. I also want to hear what Your Majesty will say in the conference room. Didn't I assign you the topic of Marquis Raquel's naturalization? Liliana froze, looking at Heston. He looked at her steadily, silent. She stared at Heston for a moment, and finally gave in. Then let's go. Heston bowed his head. Thank you, Your Majesty. Heston and Liliana left with the maid. She thought, I must stand before everyone. The three walked slowly, Liliana still lost in her thoughts. I believe many people want to test my abilities, not only Helios, but also Duke Gabriel and Marquis Raquel. Heston quietly observed her. Liliana continued to think. Perhaps Heston just wants to assess his students' abilities. I want to believe that's the case. Arriving at their destination, the maid bowed to Liliana. Your Majesty, we have arrived. The two stood to the side, watching Liliana, who was frozen with nervousness. She thought, I'm so nervous I'm dizzy. Heston walked to her side and whispered, Your Majesty, your breathing is quite rapid. He comforted Liliana. It seems you are afraid in any situation. Don't let them pressure you. Hearing Heston's words, Liliana's tense heart finally calmed down. She closed her eyes slightly, took a deep breath, and strode inside. The guard announced, Queen Liliana has arrived. The nobles present began to stir. Liliana walked in calmly, the maid and Heston following behind. She ignored the surrounding whispers, walking confidently as Heston had advised, not letting fear affect her. She didn't need to care about those who disliked her. She didn't have the eighth power, and even if she died, she wouldn't get it. Liliana walked forward and stopped in front of someone. Duke Grant looked at her with a sardonic smile. She thought, putting on an innocent smile, I'm getting tired of this. So she offered an equally false smile in return. Helio, seated above, said cheerfully, you finally arrived. He crossed his legs leisurely, looking at Liliana. Come here, Queen Liliana. Seeing she was still standing there, Helios said now. Liliana remained still. Helios extended his hand towards her. Don't just stand there, come here, Queen. He looked at Liliana, smiling as if teasing her. Don't just stand there, come here, Queen. Liliana had no choice but to take a few steps forward and curtsy. Greetings, Your Majesty Helios. Helios, of course, wasn't buying it. I can't hear you. Come closer. Liliana inwardly fumed. This guy is crazy. The surrounding people began to murmur. She gauged the distance between them, thinking to herself, the distance between the Emperor and the Queen is already the standard minimum. Liliana glanced anxiously at Grant, standing beside her. The Queen's position is currently vacant, and the Emperor says he can't hear me. It seems no one can intervene. Helios grew impatient. Hurry up. Liliana resigned herself. Oh well, Helios will protect my life anyway. She took another small step forward, thinking, although I don't know why, if this makes him happy, I have no choice. Helios sighed. What are you doing? Liliana quickly explained, I don't understand the Carlos Empire well enough, so I'm taking lessons. Helios seemed surprised. Am I causing you trouble? She hurriedly replied, absolutely not, Your Majesty. You're my top priority. Helios pondered for a moment. Is that so? Are the lessons interesting? Liliana felt confused. Yes, Your Majesty. Princess Lucia introduced me to a wonderful professor, and I've learned a lot. Helios said with satisfaction, I'm glad to hear that, but that must keep you very busy. He sighed. It seems you have no time to see me. Liliana was about to lose her temper. What is this guy trying to say? She still had to feign innocence. I'll do my best, Your Majesty. Helios suppressed a smile, and the two engaged in a pointless conversation. Is studying hard? Yes, Your Majesty, because the professor is very knowledgeable. He's been guiding me constantly. The nobles below began to look at Grant in confusion. Duke Grant cleared his throat. Ahem. Then he interrupted, Your Majesty, let's continue our discussion. Helios then pretended to suddenly remember. Right. Grant began to target Liliana. Your Majesty, Marquis Raquel of Miata has applied for naturalization in the Carlos Empire. I believe you're aware of this. Liliana nodded, slightly bewildered. I know. He started to find fault. Since you know, are you perhaps close to Marquis Raquel? Queen Liliana flustered. Duke Grant continued. Your Majesty is the Princess of Miata, and Marquis Raquel is a long-established noble of Miata. He began to accuse Queen Liliana. Could it be that the two of you are collaborating? Your purpose is to infiltrate the Carlos Empire, isn't it? The sudden accusation startled Queen Liliana. What? I didn't even know Marquis Raquel when I was in Miata. She averted her gaze, her voice low. Your words are completely baseless. Duke Grant sneered. I'm not making empty accusations. He gestured for someone to come forward. Recently, Your Majesty secretly met with Marquis Raquel. There are witnesses who can testify. Behind Duke Grant stood Lena, her face pale. Queen Liliana recalled the day Marquis Raquel handed her something, saying, this is what you wanted. Lena had been staring at the two of them. It was her, as expected Lena. She remembered the day Lena had asked for leave. I was suspicious when she suddenly asked for leave, but I didn't think much of it at the time. I even gave her money for a safe journey home. I never thought I would see her here again. Queen Liliana covered her face, choking back a sob. Lena, why are you here? Didn't you say your relative was sick? Duke Grant confidently introduced her. This is a maid from the Queen's palace. Some suspicious matters have recently come to light, and now she will testify to demonstrate her loyalty to the Empire. Lena kept her head down the entire time. Then she said loudly, recently, Queen Liliana secretly met with Marquis Raquel. Her Majesty didn't want to cause a commotion, so she asked the palace maids to keep it a secret. Lena continued, I was there to serve them and overheard their conversation. Duke Grant asked, was the content of the conversation suspicious? Lena shook her head. No, Your Majesty. But contrary to what Her Majesty said, the two seemed quite close. Duke Grant continued to fan the flames. Marquis Raquel even addressed the Queen as Princess. Queen Liliana calmly explained. Marquis Raquel simply submitted a naturalization application, and I am from Miata, which is not yet an imperial territory. It's only natural for him to address me as princess. She questioned Lena. Didn't we discuss this that day, Lena? Did I lie? She shook her head again. Emperor Helios suddenly burst out laughing. Her Majesty has learned etiquette better than anyone now. Emperor Helios's attitude displeased Duke Grant. Lena trembled beside him, clutching her skirt tightly, stammering, but the Marquis also gave Her Majesty a gift, a very expensive one. The surrounding nobles began to question Queen Liliana. Your Majesty, did you really accept a betrothal gift from Marquis Raquel? Queen Liliana feigned fear, glancing surreptitiously at Emperor Helios. He looked at her with a cold expression. Queen Liliana thought, if Emperor Helios were to intervene and help me now, that would be counterproductive. She looked at those who were staring at her suspiciously. If that were the case, everyone would look down on me, and it would undermine the purpose of my being here. Emperor Helios understands this, she thought, which is why he's observing the situation. But that's not the only reason. Queen Liliana clenched her hands tightly, thinking, Emperor Helios believes I can overcome this difficulty on my own. So she spoke confidently. I still have the gift. Her words made the two who had intended to drag her down turn pale instantly, while the other nobles erupted in an uproar. Queen Liliana took out a card. This is what the Marquis gave me. That day, Duke Grant asked with a cold face, what is that? Show it to everyone. Queen Liliana gently raised the card. This, she said calmly, is a letter my mother, Countess Mary, wrote to me. She heard that Marquis Raquel was coming to the Carlos Empire, so she asked him to bring it to me. Queen Liliana recalled that day and said firmly, the Marquis delivered the letter to me, and we only talked about her homeland. There was absolutely no political content. Queen Liliana turned shyly to Emperor Helios. Your Majesty, since it was my mother's letter that caused this controversy, I believe it's most appropriate to make the letter public, she said somewhat embarrassedly. However, there are some private matters in the letter, and it would be embarrassing to disclose everything. So I sincerely hope that Your Majesty will personally review it and put an end to this matter. Duke Grant hurriedly spoke, but Your Majesty. But Emperor Helios raised his hand to stop him. He placed complete trust in Queen Liliana. It's just a letter from the Queen's mother. I will read it and disclose the parts that are not private. An attendant took the card and handed it to Emperor Helios. He frowned, looking at the letter page by page. Below, there was silence. Some were curious, others worried. Queen Liliana also watched Emperor Helios intently. He suddenly frowned, his tone serious. Your Majesty, Emperor Helios pointed to the letter. Is everything written in here true? Queen Liliana was startled. What's wrong? Yes. She thought to herself, there's nothing special in the letter. Helios spoke sternly. There's something I need to confirm. Come here. A nobleman stood up in objection. No, Your Majesty. The only person who can openly sit beside you is the current Empress. Helios countered. Then are you implying, Mr. Terrence, that you are the Empress? You stand by my side constantly, both privately and publicly, never leaving me for a moment. Does that make you my Empress? Terrence froze. He pointed at himself. I never leave Your Majesty's side, both privately and publicly, so I'm the Empress. The nobleman stammered. An aide is an exception. Helios didn't bother to draw the now sullen Terrence into the conversation further. I have something I wish to confirm with the Queen, as an exception, so there's no need for such concern. His voice was firm. Queen, come here. Liliana glanced surreptitiously at the crowd below. Is this really all right? She decided to stop caring. I don't even know anymore. Liliana walked forward, telling herself the Emperor called for me. I'm simply obeying. She reached Helios, and he held up the letter. Queen, is this true? Liliana quickly curtsied and looked down at the letter. In it, her mother wrote, Dearest, I recently acquired a small house in the capital, so I no longer have to live in the palace. I agreed, as I prefer it that way, so don't worry. The next part was rather startling. Also, I remember how you always used to trip on the stairs, so I've had soft carpets laid on the steps. I'm worried that when you see it, you'll insist on taking naps there. Liliana looked at the letter helplessly. Your Majesty, Helios said, what is it? He pointed to the letter. Check it, that important piece of land. Though he tried to suppress his laughter, the corners of his mouth twitched upwards. My robe kept getting caught during the National Foundation Day celebrations. This is why. Liliana fumed internally. This guy, blushing, she said, "That was when I was a child, Your Majesty." Helios was clearly enjoying the letter. And when was that? Seeing as the Countess is still so concerned, it couldn't have been that long ago, could it? Yes, she hissed under her breath. Your Majesty. He held up another page. And here, the second part. It read, "Writing this letter to you reminds me of the letters you used to write to me when you were little. Because I wouldn't let you learn to read, you said you would create your own alphabet and then scribbled all over the paper." Liliana said wearily, "That's all." Helios persisted. "It's 3 pages long." She glared at him, but Helios was relentless. Resigned, Liliana said, "Yes, Your Majesty." He finally folded the letter and handed it back to her, then announced to the assembly. The letter clearly states how happy the queen was as a child. He said calmly, "Even I understand why the Empress Dowager was so fond of you. You really didn't have to say all that." Liliana maintained a composed facade while dying of embarrassment inside. "This is so humiliating." Helios asked, "You seem quite close to your mother, Queen. Knowing how much I cherish you, you're free to correspond. Why be so secretive about it?" Liliana shook her head. "I didn't want to trouble Your Majesty." Her tone was even, but her words held no disguise, especially on a day like this. "I didn't want to cause a disturbance and unsettle everyone." Helios said cheerfully, "You're far too modest, Queen. From now on, feel free to correspond as you please." Liliana said gratefully, "Thank you, Your Majesty. I won't forget your kindness." Helios looked at her warmly. "It's quite clear now that you have no connection with Marquis Raquel, so there's no reason for you to remain here any longer." He said, "You may leave now, Queen." Liliana curtsied. "Yes, Your Majesty." She descended the steps calmly. She passed Grant with her head held high. His face was thunderous, but he could do nothing. Liliana exited with her lady-in-waiting and Heston. She sighed inwardly. "It's finally over." The two behind her immediately cautioned, "Your Majesty, there are still many eyes on us. You mustn't let your guard down." She quickly straightened her posture. Heston continued, "Once we return and you've rested, we'll resume your lessons." Liliana froze, turning to look at him. "Huh, what did you say?" Heston repeated seriously, "I said we will continue your studies. If you finish today's work, there will only be more tomorrow." Liliana sweated inwardly. "I did say I preferred a strict tutor." But she groaned internally. "This is too much." 5 days later, everyone gathered again in the palace. Helios, having overcome the noble's objections, accepted Marquis Raquel's naturalization. Holding Helios' decree, Terence read its contents aloud. In exchange for his naturalization, Marquis Raquel relinquished his title of Marquis and accepted the title of Count, bestowed upon him by the Carlos Empire. Raquel stood below, listening attentively. He would donate half of the magic stone mine to the Empire and become a lifelong citizen. Those were the conditions. Grant stood to the side, barely suppressing his fury. Everything was settled. There was no longer any reason for Count Raquel to betray the Empire. After the ceremony, Helios extended his hand. "Give them to me." Liliana asked, puzzled. "Give you what?" He reminded her, "Those 3 letters. You promised them to me." Liliana hesitated, then handed over the letters. Liliana suddenly remembered. Only now did she remember. Helios frowned. Did you really forget?" Liliana quickly waved her hands. "No, I was just thinking about it." She thought in surprise, "I thought you at least asked me to repay the debt when you showed up 5 days later." It was just a few words, and Helios didn't even bother to be polite. Most people would call that forgetting. Liliana pouted. "Well, what are you going to do?" She said shyly, "I didn't have the chance to learn to read and write when I was little, so I just doodled whatever came to mind. It was more like drawing." Helios remained serious. "Draw one for me too." Liliana blushed. "I'd be embarrassed." Helios wouldn't allow her to refuse. He turned and instructed the maid behind him, "Bring paper and pen immediately." Liliana quickly stopped her. "No need, Sophia, don't bring them." Helios said, "Are you defying my order?" Liliana stuck out her tongue playfully, teasing him and leaving him confused. "Liliana," she said calmly, "I just stuck my tongue out." Then she said to Sophia, "Sophia, you don't need to bring them." Helios was persuaded. He lightly touched the tip of Liliana's nose. "I'm not refusing. I'm just setting a deadline." Liliana covered her nose. "Fine." Helios was satisfied. "You're not making excuses, so you must still remember how to write." She said shyly, "Of course I remember. Just some childish thoughts, but I was really serious back then." Helios looked at her silently. His gaze made her a little embarrassed. Helios keeps looking at me. I want to hear that story. Liliana sighed. Don't pity me after you hear it. Her eyes were a little melancholic. Actually, just think of it as a childhood anecdote.